Last year, 1.38, it looks like. And this is a consolidated budget so that you all understand. It's what we worked on there for several weeks was the county portion. But when you put it all together, there's some special districts, I guess. There's about 78 pages of budget that makes up what's called the consolidated budget of Marion County. And one reason they do that is all the publication costs for all these special districts, cemeteries, and fire districts are all put on the county's budget and not each one individually having to have that. So that's why that's... I don't have anything else to add unless there's questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Kent, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Brandon, do you have any questions?
Tax lives a pain in the butt, but that's all right.
Why is the tax rate a pain in the butt?
It doesn't take much time, we don't have enough time for me to answer all that.
So then we'll move on. Well, that could be one of the shortest hearings around.
Pretty common. Hardly any. I've done probably 500 of these. Only had 2 times anybody really, numbers showed up. One time at Osage County under the tax lid in the 90s when 4 years and the employees did not get raises. So I had all 102 county employees sitting in on the budget hearing. And then, I don't remember the other one. I think it's Mount Hope. Mount Hope had city budget. They had about 75 people show up. They were upset with some stuff, but usually people don't. Usually the opinion is voiced at the coffee shop and not at the budget hearing.
So can you tell me, did you determine exactly, what do we have in reserves? I know I asked that question once before. At the time, you didn't know. Do you actually know now?
At what point in time?
Well, the last time I think we had a meeting, I asked.
At what point in time of the year? Because it really makes a difference. So like, if you pick right after the tax distributions, there's a lot more money sitting there.
Okay.
If you pick in October, October, November, when all the road projects are just being finalized and paid out, then the reserves will be a lot lower. And so it kind of depends. And there's no distributions in the fall, and so that's why.
So give me the high and the low.
End of the year, I think we looked at the last time was 12 million at the end of the year. What you have to remember on that part is, of that 12 million, there's money sitting there on the financial statement, there's money sitting there that has not been distributed yet, so. Yeah, so like at the end of last year, 17, it was 12,136,000. And of that,
That's the end of 2004.
yeah, and of that, about 3 million of that is in the road project capital improvement fund at that time, and that'll go up and down. You'll spend some more this year, so. The rest of it is just each fund, spread between each fund.
Could have been a little more than that due to the Roxbury Road last year, because that we paid down when the final
Yeah.
payment on the Roxbury Road was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what was
There's
already.
there's a payment for the year of about 3.4 million out of that. So the road payment, probably most of it's been in there. You're putting in about 1.1 million a year if you make all the transfers. Like we haven't set up the general fund, and if you make all the transfers, it's about 1.1. If we get tight this year, which we could, in end of 18-19's budget, because the tax lid's going to start we're using up cash balances. What'll end up happening there is those transfers to the capital improvement fund will have to start being reduced. So you'll go from maybe 1.1 million and you won't make maybe one of them, which would give you another 300,000 in the general fund. The general fund has to stay healthy because that's where most of the departments are paid out of. And that cash flow, it does seem like a lot of money, but that cash flow is very important when the distributions aren't there. The last big distributions, June-ish, around June, some sales tax comes in, each year. Now this is another economic problem, but I don't help Hutchison, but they just had to cut their budget, city budget, $3 million, and they cut it another $1 million. I just started thinking about it, started adding up numbers. I'm gonna go down and meet with them, so I want to understand this, but Target closed, okay? Target probably generated, I'm just guessing, $1 million in sales tax a year. So there's $1 million of the cut. The mall, there's nothing left there in the mall. You know, you start looking at communities like that, and sales tax is a big one. But cash balance, I mean, a lot of people beat up, just all governments for having cash balances, but they don't have the ability to just go, like, if you want to do a line of credit, you can't just go do a line of credit. That's the problem. You know, like any other farmer, rancher, you know, oil, if they get a little tight, they can go typically do a line of credit, and that's why cash balances run probably a little higher in a government, just because you can't go do that. And then we were just talking, now potentially the bankers are going to want cash flows on the lease purchases that are done with governments. And I've never had to do that in 35 years. And one of the reasons is, think about it, and I'm just doing this off the top of my head, but bond issues, you can still go out and do a bond issue and it's not under the tax limit, the payments aren't. Lease purchases are if they were made after July 1st of 2016, I believe is the date. So what happens is, if you can't go out and get that, that just takes another one away. And if the cash flow doesn't work because of the tax lid, because there's not enough cash on hand, you could potentially, I've never seen this happen, you could potentially have a bank that says, we can't do your lease purchase because the cash flow there or the cash reserves are not there to make those payments. Because they put themselves at risk, because on a lease purchase, what happens is they have a paragraph that says it's a non-appropriation clause. And what that clause says is that if you have a 5-year lease with the bank, or any Cat, John Deere, any bank, and it gets to the point where the budget cannot sustain those payments, the government has a out at the end of that year to say, we no longer are going to honor the 4 years of that lease purchase. So that's probably why banks and examiners are coming on the other side and saying, if we've got that non-appropriation clause in there, we better make sure there's enough cash there to make sure that they'll pay all 5 years if this tax lid stays on. See what I'm saying? So that already, you can see, that's the first time I've been asked that.
Yeah.
But now you can all of a sudden see they're going to start looking at the cash balances, which they do on businesses too. But in a government, I've never had that, because you've always had the authority to levy anything you needed to make sure the bills got paid.
So the banks are telling
That's
you
what
that?
we just heard that this morning.
I talked to a banker on our last lease purchase that just went out.
Oh, so you're the one that heard that?
Yeah, we heard.
Well, I knew that going
Yeah.
in.
Oh, I can tell you that's going to happen, because the tax lid limits now. And with that clause in there, in the past it's never been worried. I mean, would you like to sign an agreement that said, I'm going to loan you $1 million and I'll pay back the first $250,000, but after that $250,000, I don't have any money left to pay back, so you're stuck with the $750,000, and you're going to have to go figure out how do I sell, let's say in this case, the transfer station. How do you as a bank who you wouldn't pay the payments on the lease purchase, if that's the route it went. That would be a pretty difficult lending position of a banker, to say, I won't get any more payments on that lease purchase. And I haven't heard all that yet, but I can see it happening because of the lockdown of that tax lid staying on, and the non-appropriation clause that has to be put in all these purchases to say governments are not tied to making these payments if the money is not there. I've only had one. There's a tractor, John Deere. I had this happen with I think it's a little city. They turned the John Deere tractor back to John Deere and said, we don't have to pay for it anymore. We'll do something else. So that's all I know. But I think just because I'm going down tomorrow, we own part of a bank sedan, and I'm going down tomorrow to probably maybe join the board. My brother retired. He didn't want anything to do with it. And the banking world today is nuts. I do audits of banks. They're nuts. And so who would ever thought that they would say governments have to do a cash flow to make sure you have enough money to make a payment on a lease purchase? I would never have thought that. So that's why we carry extra cash. I mean, that again just proves the point of why we need extra cash to be able to show that we have the sustainability to make those payments in case something goes rough.
I did hear something from David Arterberry too about that they're, the cash balances, if they get too low, that will adversely affect the bond rating.
Oh, yeah.
For us.
Yeah.
So.
One of the first questions I get asked when I sit in on a Standard & Poor's or Moody's, I've asked been said on, like, you'll get called, like, so let's say you go out and you put the rest of that debt, if it went this way, the rest of that debt on the transfer station on a bond, and Moody's and Standard & Poor's gets involved, you'll have to sit down and answer the questions of why your cash balance is the way they are. Now, the one I was involved with is in Narrow County. I don't work on right now out west. But what had happened is they had a lot of reserve funds, but the people at Moody's and Standard & Poor's didn't understand how state law works, and those transfers are reciprocal, where you can actually take them back into the general fund. But the general fund only had like $100,000 in it, and the rest of them were sitting out in reserve funds. And so, that's the number one thing they look at. They don't look at the asset because the assets really aren't going to generate the money to pay off as collateral, to pay off the loan. They're looking at the cash flow, most examiners are, and Standard & Poor's and rating institutions to see if you have cash flow to be able to make those payments, especially if you have a lease purchase and you have a clause in there that says you don't have to if you don't have the money, which is,
And that's going to be standard wording under the tax lid. So that's going to be a whole new learning curve for most bankers, and so they are going to, the scrutiny is just. We're just like average Joe walking out of the street now, requesting a line of credit. We want your cash flow. We want busy plan.
To even take that one step further, just sitting here thinking out loud. I just heard this about 10 minutes ago. But the way the lease purchase works in the tax lid is you can't generate any new ones that will take you above the tax lid, okay? So like if you had one, you could still have it under the tax lid, but the dollars are locked. Like in your case, they're locked at $10 million. And if you want to go outside and get a lease purchase, you can't have a new one that goes above the tax lid. And so there's only so many dollars under that tax lid. So all of a sudden, it's going to start freezing, the payments you made on others, and so new ones won't be able to be made. And that's where bankers, I think the regulators are going to start saying, well, if there's only $10 million and they have $11 million in potential payments, how are they going to make that? Because they can't. The reason it's always been wide open for debt or lease purchases is they have the authority to levy money if they get in a tough time. And now they don't, unless you go to election. But that's like the one at Osage back in the 90s, they voted it down. Those Osage County citizens voted it down 4 times to go out from under the tax lid. So I don't know the exact answer because that cash flow, that cash balance at any time in the year would be a lot different, depending on, like in May or June, it might be the highest because you're just starting your road projects, and that's typically in a county the biggest outlay. So it's sitting there, you're starting your projects, and then the rest of them are pretty common. Like I think I said one time, 55% of your expenditures are personnel, Counties are a little bit lower than cities. Cities are more like 60 to 65. School districts are 80% personnel. So there's not much you can change, you know, I mean, that's, unless you start cutting services. I mean, that's,
So under the tax lid, it probably wouldn't even be wise to go out on lease purchase in October, when your cash balances are at the lowest.
yeah, you'd want to make sure that, well, they probably don't just look at the current. They probably look at, you know, you'd have, in a government cash flow, if I was talking to that banker, I'd have to show probably the ending balances now, or the maybe quarterly balances, so you can kind of see a picture. The problem is when you come around to the next year, under a tax lid, they are going to start dwindling. You know, they're going to start, because that's just, it's been proven in anyone that I've worked on in the past, that when you lock down a certain number, you've got to get it somewhere, and cash balances are where, I mean, one year in Marion County under the tax lid, we went in and cut, I don't know if even Tina was here, it was about 10% out of the middle column at this point right here till the end of the year, to make sure we had enough cash to operate on back that time. That was about the third year of the tax lid. We're in the second right now. But I'm gonna find out tomorrow. I'm gonna ask them that question about lease purchases, because we're under incredible scrutiny at the First National Bank in Sedan, so I'm sure they've, with the examiners, just some things that's happened there. So I'm gonna ask them that, because that's the first time I've heard of that. But it all makes sense, because the way regulators think, it's all on cash flow. If there's no cash flow there, I don't care what kind of collateral you got sitting out there, even the courthouse in Marion
Yeah.
County, it's not gonna matter if there's no
And
cash
county
flow.
numbers are a little bit more, it's a little harder to put together than an individual's
Oh,
or,
yeah.
or corporation,
Yeah.
because you gotta look at several different areas.
I had one city that actually added another % of sales tax, because the mill levy had to go up 21 this year. It's at 102 now, and they're talking about even putting a 1% sales tax on, which will generate about 23,000, which is 10 mills. So, I mean, they're in a really dire, we're gonna get through it, but it's gonna be, those citizens there, the 600 and some citizens in that city are gonna be taxed to the nth degree. Yeah. So it's if it stays on another 2 or 3 years, it'll get interesting.
And we have no clue of which direction that might head, especially in an election year.
No, that's right. And it all based on the economy. You know, if the economy doesn't stay strong, then it really gets challenging. But right now, we have a fairly strong economy. Soybeans look great, so hopefully. That's what I would look at.
Not too
I
late
drive-
for the corn, but it's, soybeans are all right.
Drive around and look at the farm crops and think, okay, this would be. Anyway, I don't know, that's my thoughts. If you want more like
No, no, you answered my question.
the monthly, I don't know if you would have it, but don't you have a monthly clerks? That monthly clerks report that you get that shows the cash balances by fund, I don't know if it compares to the cash balances in other years in that
No.
same, yeah. That would be the only way you could kind of see where you're at today compared to, say, the last 3 years, is if there's a way to generate a report at any 1 month where it showed, because it is kind of changing in a 12-month period. But if you could show the month end and compare it to the last 3 years month end for those last 3 years, and you could see if our cash balances are going this way or going this way, and you would have a lot better feel as we get tighter here in a 12-month period, because you can't just take a cash flow at the end of the year, because we've got a lot of cash sitting there that's going to be distributed, you know, January 20th. But if you had some kind of a report that would generate that way, that would kind of give you a feel for it. So each month you could look at and see how it compares to the last 3 years before tax lid, to see how those balances.
Does our computer system allow for anything like that?
No, but I know how to use Excel.
And so that would be something that you could kind of monitor and see how that's working.
would be helpful.
Because that's what most, like in this lease, that's what most examiners would do. They'd look at the last 3 years' cash flows, look at the 3 or the year forward, and see if your cash flows sustain your borrowing power. Okay.
Does anybody else have any budget questions? None?
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Yep, take care.
And,
Well,
Thank you.
Ready to
Yourself.
take your official action to adopt the budget and sign off on it.
Okay, so do I have a motion on the budget?
Make a motion to adopt the budget as presented. Scott Lloyd presented.
Got a motion by Randy to accept the budget as presented. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Kent. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Aye. No, I understood that. Okay, so the budget hearing now is closed,
Okay, can I get you to,
and we
everyone to
will
sign off on the front
go ahead
page?
and call the county commission meeting to order. Good morning. How are you?
Okay.
Just absolutely anywhere in these little tiny lines, huh?
Yes, usually chairperson signs on the top line there.
Got a right little.
Yeah.
Still raining out there when you came in?
Mile to mile and changes.
I bet. We need more chairs, maybe. No, we still have chairs. We still have chairs.
They're in that convention hall.
All right.
Are you ready for me?
Yes, I am.
Okay. First thing I have are the minutes of August 13th.
Okay, we have the minutes of August the 13th. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes of August 13th as written?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of August 13th.
And I'll go ahead and second that. You're going to say what you want to. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and Randy abstains.
Staying for that.
Okay. I have supplements. These, I believe, are all just for review.
Oh, okay.
A few upcoming things. The regional commission meeting is being held August 29th in Bennington. That's in Ottawa County at 6 o'clock. And it's just about a 2-hour drive, a little under 2 hours. And they are asking for an RSVP on that. That's the one, we hosted a while back, but that is a Wednesday, I believe. Yes. Next Wednesday.
Put me down.
Okay,
Put me down.
okay,
Yep, I plan to go.
okay. I will let them know today. There are a couple of trainings coming up, and actually August 23rd. So coming up this week yet, there's the Essentials in County Government that's offered through KAC. And then there is an open government training, if anybody has a chance to go to that. That's also on August 23rd, and that is in Wichita. That one is 9 to noon.
You have me signed up for the one in Manhattan, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Where's that located at?
The, which one?
The one in Wichita?
It's, I'll have to look at the
Well,
exact
it's on-
location.
It's on there, I know.
Yeah. I have signed up for that one, because anytime I can get a refresher when they're in town, the Attorney General's office are the best ones to train on that, and it's free, so, anyhow, that's. But I do have to register you, so if anybody's interested in going to any of these classes, please let me know, so I can get you signed up.
And you still sign up by tomorrow? Or is it too late already?
If you think you're gonna go, then I would sign you up today and
And
just
it's-
to make sure
it's
there's space.
Thursday?
The 23rd, yes, Thursday.
Okay. Let's go ahead and put me down.
Okay. There is the League of Kansas Municipalities Annual Conference that's coming up, and it's October 6th through 8th. It's more for cities, but it does have useful information for people in county government as well, and we are members of the league, so if anybody is interested in that, the information's in your packet, and just let me know if that's something you want to sign up for. That's over a weekend plus a Monday, so the last day of that is on a Monday. And then just a reminder that the KAC annual conference is coming up in Overland Park, and I do have all three of you registered for the full conference. So just want to keep that on your radar there. Let me know if there's some reason that you won't be able to make that. So part of that, for the KAC conference, they do ask you to name a voting delegate and an alternate for the KAC board, and then also you'll need to do the same for the K-Work board. So to be able to vote on those issues.
Motion for the chair to be the voting delegate and the vice chair to be the substitute for the KAC.
Got a motion by Randy for the chair to be the voting delegate for the KAC conference. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Kent. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay. And is that, did you want to do that both for KAC and the K-Work board for the whole full conference? Just making sure that, okay. Also, you do have the opportunity, if you wish, to nominate anyone for the K-Work board. There is an at-large position open. So
Do they meet in Topeka most of the time?
I don't know the answer to that. I will have to find out.
That would probably be a really good board to be on. I think they do a lot of things. I'm not sure, Dinah Yost is on that.
I can find out, and if you guys want to make any kind of a nomination, we have a little time to do that, so I can bring that back next week. Okay, a few weeks ago you set a hearing for the Rural Water District number 4 to expand their boundaries. And we do need to set another hearing. There was apparently one step that wasn't completed. And so Susan Robson is asking us to set a hearing for September the 10th at 9:15. And if you all would make a motion and vote to do that, then we can notify everyone of the second hearing.
Okay. Okay, so I'll go ahead and make a motion to amend the order setting hearing on a petition for attachment of the adjoining lands to the district. It'll be on the 20th day of August.
It'll be
Yeah,
on.
no, I'm sorry, the 10th day of
Yes, there you go,
September.
that's it.
Today's the 25th. All right, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
On the 10th day of September at 9:15 in the County Commission Chambers in the courthouse in Marion County. Do I have a second? Second by Randy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Sign it.
Yes, there's
Three.
yes, ma'am. And you had asked me to put the Workforce Area 1 agreement in your packet again for review and adoption, so I have done that. And they are asking for approval of the agreement and the authorization for the chairman to sign it.
And you also read it, Mr. Jansen,
I did.
right?
That was sent to me some time ago, and I reviewed it previously.
Fine.
Mhm.
Okay, so do I have a motion to go ahead and accept the Area 1 agreement and authorize the chair to sign?
I'll make a motion to accept the Area 1 agreement.
I have a motion by Kent. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Randy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's just the top one on the left.
Okay.
Thank you. The next time that Melena and then Dr. McGrath will be here, they are actually, we've been trying to set a date for them to come and visit with all of you. We ended up just going on a regular commission day, so it'll be September 17th in the morning, first thing. So that's when they will be back to visit with you. Just wanted to follow up on that because I've asked you probably at least 3 or 4 different times if a date would work, and so wanted to let you know.
Okay.
And then the only other thing that I had was at the last meeting, you had mentioned the potential of, or the possibility of changing the meeting structure for the payday meetings. And so that was just a discussion item I had on my list to bring back when the full board was here, so.
Okay. And Randy, you weren't here, so what that was I had just asked, a lot of times people get like confused on the last week of the month when the commission meeting is, because it always falls on the last day, sometimes it's Tuesday or whatever it is. And of course, our council cannot be present on the day because he agreed to come in on the Mondays. So we were talking about that, and I was thinking, and I suggested that maybe we just have commission every Monday. And then on payday, whatever day it falls, the commissioners can come in, just take care of payday activity, pay what we need to do and leave. That way it doesn't affect anybody else. If they want to come, they certainly can. But it wouldn't be any other county business taken care of, just take care of payday activities, and we just take care of our obligations and be done with it. So that's what that was all about. So it's just an idea to kind of clean up the meetings a little bit and be a little bit more uniform. So I think, Kent, you expressed that, I don't think, you didn't have a concern?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so we want to hear what you have to say.
Well, just the payday falls on the very next day after Monday, why, it's two meetings back to back right there. I mean, we can handle it all in one, whichever. Makes no difference to me, but we can handle it whichever.
And of course, if Monday was a holiday, then
It
the
falls on
meeting would
Tuesday.
be the Tuesday,
Well,
yes.
yeah, unless the end of the day. Okay, I thought, looking at, depends on what the end of the month falls on.
No, I was
Last
talking
working
about
day.
the commission meeting. If the commission, when Monday is a holiday, then we probably would not have a commission meeting that Monday, we would have it Tuesday. I wasn't talking about the payday. Payday would be
I'll think
payday.
about it.
So, did you have any concerns about it or anything? You think it would
Not all.
fit in your schedule?
Yeah, we'll see if we can.
Okay.
That's all I have.
That's all you have?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, so then the next thing on the agenda, moving along here, will be the Marion County Economic Development Corporation. Do we have a speaker? Mr. Seibert? Mr. Clint Seibert? Have a hot seat?
Is that it?
That's it.
Folks joining us here. Come on in, Randy. Yeah.
My name is Catherine Young, and I'm an employee of the County Economic Development. So I am at every meeting, and I do different jobs for the corporation. And I would like to say that the corporation's board is trying to be as frugal as possible with all the monies that they receive, because we know that this is taxpayer money, and we want to be careful with what we do with it. One thing that we're saving is there was an accounting firm that quoted us $400 a month to do our books. One of my master's degrees is in accounting, so I said, let me do that. So that is saving the corporation $4,800 a year. And the payroll processing, Hannah Bourbon, she's not here, but she does that. Otherwise, we would be paying $100 a month, which is $1,200 a year. Hiring a full-time person will require us to provide health insurance. The quotes that I have received are pretty high for that. And what we're here today to ask you is to be our payroll processor so we can take advantage of economies of scale there. And that would save the corporation $300 per month or $3,000 yearly. Now, this does not mean that the county would supervise the employee, but would help us with the economies of scale. And Clint is going to talk more about that.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. That's helpful. But first of all, I'd just like to thank you for giving us some time this morning. Basically, we'd like to just give you some updates of our activities, and then, as Catherine stated, we'd like to make a proposal. Some of our board members send their regrets. They'd like to be here, but they've got some other things going, their work schedules, etc. But we want you to know that we have some very committed board members who want to see this project be successful for the county. And as a group of volunteers, we're doing this, we feel, as a public service at the request of you, our commissioners. We feel we're working on your behalf to carry this out. This whole idea of bringing on an economic development director is not ours. We're picking it up. So there are some questions that have come up now that some of our former stockholders have informed us that financial support will not be forthcoming, as some of them have not put it in the budget. I think you read it in the papers. And we're wondering, and this is not a question for you because it's in our bylaws evidently, but we're needing to deal with and work. We're wondering if board members appointed by these entities, Hillsborough, Marion, and Peabody in particular, can actually serve. I mean, are we actual board members at this point? I was appointed by the city of Hillsborough, so we're still good because they're making their commitment through 18, but as of 19, there's a question, okay? Anyway, that's just, the fact is that we don't have even full board positions from the county commissioners that you all can, that you all can put on. So just as an update as to where we're at. So we're a little bit in limbo as to our board members right now. We have to figure out what, from the outside looking in, it may seem as though we've spent a lot of money and really nothing has been accomplished. I mean, that's what you hear out there. And so one of the things that I would like to do is to share with you, some of our financial figures, because I know Diane was asking that question earlier. The truth is that this endeavor has been going on for what, over 2 years? But nearly all of our present board members have been on for almost like a year or less. So we've had to have a lot of catch-up to do just to know, what this is about and how it's been going. And we've been working for a pretty short period of time. I came on I think in April and have served as a chairman, so it's been a lot of catch-up. We've just had to, in order to just reorganize ourselves from the original board. So not to make an excuse for the things that we have not been able to accomplish, but we've been working. We've been working hard at that. Now, I know there's concern about where we stand financially, so I'm going to give you some quick numbers, and these are round numbers. They're within a few dollars due to time, okay? These numbers come from February 1, 17 to date. And the funds that we have received in various forms are $186,400, round numbers. Our expenditures through that time have been $18,400, leaving us a fund balance of right at $167.9. Okay. Again, these are round numbers. We have all of our financials, and Catherine's done a great job. They're on QuickBooks. We have a profit and loss, and that profit and loss is available upon request if you want to dig in and see all. I mean, we're an open book on that. We do have some anticipated receipts for the rest of 2018, which would be approximately $56,000. The county's fourth quarter plus Hillsborough's commitment, which would be another. So we would have a total of right at $250,000, $224,006. That's right about what we would have by the end. Now, of course, we will have a few more anticipated expenses through 2018, but they're minimal. We pay for a part-time administrator, which is Catherine. You should know that our offices have been donated to us by Emprise Bank graciously, including the utilities. So we're not spending a lot of money to keep our offices going and whatever. Now, again, as I say, we keep these on QuickBooks, so we have every dime accounted for. So as you can see, the result of the project that you initiated, there have been almost 3 years of volunteer board services that have been taking place. 3 years of a lot of people who have driven a lot of miles to take care of this from all over the county, all the way from Burns to Peabody to Tampa, have come together and given a lot of hours with really a minimum of funds spent. So, as we're working to develop a proposal for our prospective director, the board is wanting to propose that the county, as you already heard, become our paymaster for salary and benefit package. Now, we feel this is much more cost-effective than MCC EDC recreating that wheel on our own. This model has worked well with the city of Hillsborough, namely when I was the director there, they became the paymaster, and I was hired by Hillsborough Development Corp. And the city became the paymaster. I come under their benefits, capers, etc. And that had worked now for 10 years or better. The process is pretty simple in that our director would be a county employee, but MCC EDC would sign an agreement with the commissioners to assume the oversight of the director. The commissioners still wouldn't have to take care of it. So out of the funds we received from the county, we would then pay back each month what has been put out by the county for this employee. Reading the papers and listening to last week's commission meeting, it sounded as though there was a motion made not to accept that proposal. Well, that was kind of interesting, the fact that we hadn't made the proposal, but you passed. I don't think it passed, did it not?
They didn't end up making it as a formal motion because there was no proposal.
Okay, yeah, exactly. But I think what was cited was it was a risk. The risk was too high for the county commissioners to take it on. Is that what I'm hearing? So my question is, if it's too risky for you, why should we as volunteers take on that risk? It's your project, but you want somebody else to take on the risk. It kind of set us all back to say, okay, is this our project or whose is it, and do we have support? It seems as though we are working at your bidding to do this project, but there's roadblocks set up in order to make it difficult for us to get this done. And it takes a lot of, so here we are coming together and working at it, and but there's a roadblock.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna stop you right there. I'd like to know why I was absent. What's the problem with the county handling the funds? I don't understand why we couldn't handle payroll and stuff. That's what you're asking for, more or less, isn't it?
Yes.
Insurance.
And it would be the agreement would be written up as it is in Hillsborough by an attorney, so that this agreement is that we do your work basically, but the county becomes.
I've been in other cities besides Hillsborough that's done that away and stuff like that. I just guess I'd like to hear what the problem is.
So did you want to go ahead and address that?
At that point, and I don't know where we're getting into risk, I don't remember that discussion. What was posed to me was if the individual would be an employee of the county, and to the best of my knowledge, the answer was no at that time. We hadn't talked about what you just presented at all, and what I had done, for example, was contact Capers. They have a list of kind of threshold predicate questions that they ask, and I've got those on there. And we would be able to meet them unless every one of those is predicated upon that individual being an employee of the county.
It's true.
So we would get into a bind to some extent with Capers if we attempted to qualify them if this individual was not an employee. And that was really the primary pivoting point on that element of it.
Yeah, and I can understand that. That sounds reasonable. But our proposal would be that this would be a county employee. We would sign an agreement to take oversight of that individual and work with that person day to day, week to week, or month to month, whatever it would happen. And we already have everything set up. We have the office, we have the administrative assistant. We're ready to run. But we just feel that for us to do all of this, create this wheel again, as she pointed out, the savings that would be there is not good for the county taxpayers.
why have to do it? I think there can be something worked out to where we can handle that myself. That's my feelings.
Yeah, well, that's where the discussion came from, Clint, was that this individual would not be a county employee, but we would be doing all of this and cause some problems with capers, with benefits, with all this. There was no discussion about being a county employee.
Well, and that's why it would have been good for us to be able to have the proposal before you would have discussed it, but that's all right, you know, we're here to clarify. And so I would say, you know, in a matter of time, unless we have more discussion here, it's our understanding that we're doing the bidding of the MCC. MCC is doing the bidding of your request to do this, and so we'd like to see. It feels like we're asked to do something that we're not sure we have support for, and it makes it difficult to carry out our job. And I guess our question, bottom line is, you know, now that the county, according to the papers, have become our sole stockholder, funder, you know, do we have support from our funder so that we can go to prospects and say that we're, and I do need to tell you that our best candidate for this position just sent me an email stating that she took another position, citing that the struggle to find financial support was her reason for taking the other job. She's reading our papers and hearing our discussion. So, needless to say, we are quite disappointed on our end, somewhat having to go back and regroup, and we're going to take the criticism of moving along and not getting anything done, which is somewhat true. Anyway, I'd like to yield to any other comments of my board members.
My only comment was I asked the commission 3 or 4 months ago, I don't know the exact time, whether we were at a stalemate then, you know, whether we had their support, and I took it as we did, and that's when we regrouped after our first potential candidate went by the wayside. And the one that we got after this was more stellar resume to references. I think up till just the last 3 or 4 days, she had every intention to come here. The negativity of last week's paper was the deciding, and I might not be right, so I shouldn't say that. But we were so hopeful that the moons had aligned or something, and this was going to happen, be a benefit for the county. We're not very, I don't know, a little bit more than disappointed, I guess.
Anybody else?
Anybody else?
I will have to say that you have a very dedicated board. These people show up week in and week out, you know, whenever they need to meet. And they're there and they have the best ideas, and I sit and I listen to them, and they are so motivated and so excited to work and get this done. I think that there is a lot of opportunity in this county, because right now you have Marion and Hillsborough who have economic development, but you have Tampa and Florence and Peabody and Gossel. You have all these other little cities that I think that we could really help and really get going. I know that Peabody, they're starting to roll and do things and change and everything. And we were there to help them with that, and we're going to continue to help them. But I think there is so much, so many areas that we can help in.
I guess we just, unless you have questions for us, we'll just wrap it up by saying we'd like you to consider our proposal to become our paymaster as we look for a new candidate. We would ask for your patience with us. at one point in time, we heard that if we didn't have somebody in this position by X date, there wouldn't be any funding, so, but, yeah, we're still in the saddle, let's put it that way, and we'd like to come back or hear from you, I'm not quite sure. And I want to say thanks to Tina too, I call her, so, and she's been great in communicating, you know, what you all have for us, so we'll keep in touch. I don't know how you want to leave it.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, wait, yeah, all right, go ahead.
How are you going to be able to fund a director's pay for every, you know, that's what I'm curious about, is how you're going to be able to have enough money to pay them.
Well, basically, you know the parameters, you know our funding until
Right now, I do,
18,
yeah.
$250,000, and our package that we were offering to this employee was in the neighborhood. It was in the neighborhood of the 60s, with benefits going to about 72. And we're solid for a couple of years, not counting the monies that would come in from, we were hoping to set a track record so the county would say, we can't live without this person and keep this funding. So that's how we anticipate.
Because I know that the county has funded the biggest part of it right now.
They are, and we are
That's what I'm-
committed to living within our means.
Okay.
And I think I shared that with Diane at a point as well. We have a budget, we would be living within our means.
Patty, you had a question?
Well, I just, Clint brought up a couple of things that the question of the board without the support of Marion, Hillsborough, and I don't know if Peabody's ever contributed, have they?
They paid their 17 dues.
Yeah.
All the entities have paid their initial dues in 17.
Right, but now,
The only ones that have contributed in 18 are City of Hillsborough and the county.
right, but now in 2019, Hillsborough's in question, Marion's not. The bylaws, I think, were set up to, if you have representation from a city contributing, so before you can do anything, I think that needs to be straightened out.
Yes, exactly. The bylaws are gonna have to be
And
altered, changed, something, yes.
And I will also elaborate on that. I did question the financing, and to what Patty is saying, looking forward, realize right now you may have a little pot of money. But in this project, we're looking at going well past just right now. And with the other stakeholders pulling out, looks pretty grim. And so when you bring somebody in from another state and they make the move and they do all these things, that's a dramatic thing to an individual to move and come here, knowing that you really have uncertainty within your own budget. I'm not disputing all the hard work you've done and everything, but with everybody pulling out like they have, that just raises a flag for me, because it cannot come back on just the county.
Why not? I think that it would be grim if the county pulls their funding. That would be grim. We can live on the county's funding and get the work done that we need to do. We would hope that the cities would buy into that, but with the county's money, we can live pretty good.
And to your point right there, when you say why not, then it comes back on the county. So if it's gonna be just a county employee, and we have your group managing and so on, and the county out of it, I think I brought up last week that then becomes a quasi-public corporation, which has a lot of legal problems. And so all that would have to be worked out before it just gets dumped on our lap. We need to know, in the same way you just mentioned a minute ago, that your proposal to this person was somewhere around $70,000. I would have thought that it would have been more wise on your part to maybe come before the commission to at least let us know where we stand or what you're doing, so that we didn't have all these uncertain questions. We should not be not knowing. We should be up and know what's going on. Because there's just, you know, we're talking about, like you said, taxpayer money. And if we were gonna fall back on the county, if it's gonna be just a county project, the county needs to have the oversight. Then why do we need the board here to do it if it's just gonna be a county employee and just a county project? I mean, I don't understand why we would continue in this format with it, is my question back.
Well, yeah, I wasn't in that early discussion but I think the commissioners at this point felt that they didn't have the time or the expertise to oversee an economic development person and would draw together people who did have that expertise to, Randy, you might
Correct.
comment.
Yeah, that's correct. That's the main reason why is to get a group of volunteers from our county that's willing to put some time in and to put some effort in instead of, as people criticize government all the time and the way government does things, well, this is business people that's trying to do something for the county. And so, with that being said, that's why that's how it was formed. That was the bylaws. That was the reason why we funded it. When we give the funds away, when we okayed the funds like that, we knew that we was not having no vote on how the money was spent. We knew that, but we expected to see the books and things like that. Yes, we did
We
expect to see
expected
that.
regular
Yes.
reports,
And so.
and we expected all the cities to continue supporting. So when this
No,
started-
not when we give the money. We didn't know about the cities at any time. That was done with the original board after it was done. They asked the board, asked the cities, not to us. We set the board up, and then they decided that the city should come back in with a whatever per
In order
piece
to,
or how to.
in order to put people on the board, it
Yeah.
was almost a
Correct.
pay-to-play kind
Correct.
of thing.
Yeah, but we didn't do that. That was done by the original board. So.
So it was a good attempt that
Yes.
didn't quite pan out as the original board thought.
Correct, yes, yeah, so, that's,
Originally, though, it was presented to us as a county project, like the city, Marion and Hillsborough, and they were going out and they were asking all the different communities to participate.
I would yield to Randy on that.
no,
No?
it was, we put the money up to do that, and then they decided that these cities, that everybody wanted to be on the board, and then they come up with the numbers. Hillsborough so much, Peabody so much, Marion so much.
And they went out and solicited them to be a part of it, yes, before it was actually established and before we actually participated in it.
But they reported back too, that if they didn't come on board, why, it was still the county's money, that was the base funds.
I don't recall that at all. I think it was to be a group effort throughout the county.
The way the bylaws are set up, is it could be anybody. It could be another private corporation that pays into it to get 2 seats on the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so
Yeah.
there's nothing that defines it as the 3 communities you just mentioned.
No, not just the 3, but other ones.
No,
And
but
other
any
ones put
community,
it
any
joint
private
too.
corporation, I mean, from my understanding, of course, none of us are from the original board.
Yeah.
Right, you know,
Yeah.
everybody
Right.
that's on the board now is new. My understanding from the original board members and talking to a few of them is that the long-term goal was to literally have it funded,
Yeah.
all by private,
Yeah.
and eventually no county funding, no city's funding, and have it all funded that way. That's a great
I'll go
goal.
along with that. That would have been the ultimate goal.
That's the ultimate goal.
But that
So
wasn't
along the
way
way,
set up.
it's just whoever pays, we got the spots onto the board.
Mhm.
So, and that's why we're trying to figure out how to make up.
We are.
But
Again, I don't want to belabor this. More
No,
questions?
well, it's important though, I mean, it's kind of an open-ended question, but if we would proceed under the scenario that's been proposed to us, do you think there would be some attitude changes around the county with some of the other communities? I mean, some of them just right now are saying, no, we're not budgeting anything. I mean, could we perceive some type of attitude change toward this? I know you gotta have a director in place to really get an attitude change. But, you know, if everybody's just gonna bail, then,
Well, we know that one community has given us, yes, we will participate when we see,
yeah, right.
and you know, they haven't seen yet. So, yeah, you know, so there, yes, I think the answer to your question is yes, there would be some attitude changes. if we can produce something, but we're just having a hard time getting over some of these roadblocks that seem to be set in front of us.
Have you tried to go back and talk to Marion? I know Marion presented you with a list of questions.
Yes, we've
And
talked to them several
pending
times.
on that list is why they pulled out. Now, have you ever gone back to really try to get them back in? Have you, talked to Hillsborough, tried to get them back in? I mean, these are huge stakeholders. Do you have a plan to try to correct wherever this disconnect is with these stakeholders?
We have to, I've talked to both mayors personally, and I've got a plan. I don't know if they bought the plan. Well, they haven't yet.
For in order for the plan to work, that director is the key.
We really think it is, because us as volunteers have all we can do just to make the organization try to function, let alone go out and get results. Now, a bunch of us were in Peabody at an open house. We went, tried to support it, so we're trying to do what we can on a volunteer basis, but some of them have jobs and are on other volunteer boards as well.
And I think we're all very aware that it don't happen overnight. I mean, it just does not happen overnight, and that's why when we first talked about this, my deadline was 3 years for you, sort of, see what happened at the end of 3 years after that. So, and that was from you just forming the board and getting things going, and the first year of funding, this would have been the first year, so there'd be 2 more years yet that I would like to see what we've accomplished in those 3 years, and it takes time. It don't happen overnight. So I'm really sad that any kind of pressure has been put down this quick, Clint. I mean, that really don't. You got to have some pressure to do things. I understand that, but yet it takes time to form things and get things going.
So, again, leave you with 2 questions. Are you supportive of what's happening, number 1, and number 2, would that be brought forth in accepting our proposal to be our paymaster? Those are the 2.
Patty has a question she wants to ask also.
Well, I'm sorry, I just wanted to, I looked at the proposal, or not proposal, the strategic plan, action plan. I wasn't personally very impressed with it, and I don't know how Hillsborough Development Board has done their strategic plan, action plan, but I don't think it would look like what we have for MCC EPC. I mean, the format, just the contingency, what happens if this happens, what happens. Action plan isn't what somebody does in the office that month.
That's true.
My question of the proposal to Tina is, what kind of hoops would we have to, and Brad, what kind of hoops would we have to jump through to do this? I mean, would it require a new job description presented by the county, or?
It creates all kinds of things that have to be worked out, like we discussed last week, even the changing of the bylaws. There's all kinds of things that have to be worked out. He asked you the question, I'm sorry, give you.
It's okay. It's just, we have never done anything like this before. So it's kind of new territory for the county to do something like that. So I can't really answer that. I don't know.
And I think it's been mentioned, there are some changes to the bylaws. They were written in a certain way. I don't disagree with the interpretation that basically it was kind of bad play. And that's a little, based on the ones that I've been involved with in other county settings, it's a little different, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. It just depends on what works in a given circumstance. Some changes need to be made there, and we kind of discussed those generally. We'd have to establish the necessary parameters to turn that director into an employee, which was the real issue that we discussed from my perspective in terms of input I was asked about. If that's done, then yes, I mean, basically you're going to be able to hit those questions. You've got an employee of more than 1,000 hours. They are an employee, I mean, that is pervasive in each of the 5 criteria that CAPERS looks at in terms of their legal counsel. So if we establish that, then that answers itself. It probably also solves the issue with any other benefit in the way of insurance, that kind of thing, as well.
Yeah, I was just
Just have to have
concerned
that.
about what Capers would, if it was our employee, but another group is overseeing that employee.
That's where the agreement gets to be very explicit, so that we establish that the oversight and you get into simple things that turn out to not be so simple at that point. Evaluation is done by that organization, but hiring and firing ends here, because it's an employee. And so you have to set those things up in a way that they'll work smoothly. The board would know exactly what their parameters are, and you know exactly where you step in and step out. But I can't say that it's impossible. It just would be something you have to work through in a fairly meticulous fashion so that you have it in place.
The bottom line is, the commissioners still hire and fire me by the fact that they can withdraw the funding and we're done. So they do have ultimate control over this whole situation.
Yes, I don't disagree with that. It's just in terms of employment law,
Yeah,
what you
I-
consider an employee, that's the part we have to cross the T's on.
And the only point that we were discussing last time is not putting the cart before the horse. We want to get all these things worked out. Or I brought this up basically because I don't want, I'm looking at the future. And there's a lot of things in here that need to be fixed before we actually get into it, so we don't get into a bind or a pickle after somebody moves halfway across the country. And if you give her a contract, or him, whoever it would be now, a contract, and if they resign or something happens, you know, then that's a sticky mess too, because he's gonna, you know, there's a lot of money that somebody's gonna pay out. I mean, there's just a lot of open-ended issues that need to be solved,
And
which
we're-
is the professional way to
And
do
we're
it.
trying to tie those ends up, basically. Well, thanks for hearing us out. You know, how much time should we wait until we hear from you or come back to you? We're basically starting an employee search. So we'd like to get this wrapped up before we have another prospect that we want to make an offer. We have to have some assurance that we're on the right track.
As far as Anthony and Randy being advisors to our board this entire time, I'd like to know if they have anything to say, comment at this point. Yes, up to you. Perhaps a question for us.
I guess at this point it'd be appropriate to ask Brad to, I guess, work with.
Is Josh still working with you folks?
Yes.
Probably be the person I'd contact.
No, he's not
I don't
working
know.
with us.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he was.
I don't
Yeah,
think so.
he's questioning whether it's wise for him to, with some conflicts of interest. I don't understand it exactly. I haven't talked to him personally, but he has.
for
a
city
yeah.
attorney and
Yeah.
afraid of
Yeah.
conflict of interest.
So,
Anna
yeah.
was talking to him and she said, no.
But if we can communicate, sure, we can kind of maybe have a preliminary discussion as to
Yeah,
see where it goes. I'd be glad to visit with you about that.
we could do that this week and see where we are.
All right? Let's, I do have your number. Should I call your office and set up an appointment?
Yeah, that would be fine, or even just email me with your available times this week, and that will step it up a little bit.
Do you have a card?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
Again, thank you for
Thank
hearing
you,
us.
guys. Thank you.
And you start doing that, Brad, would you want to have some kind of a little talk with the commission as to what we expect also
Mhm.
then?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
all part and parcel of it, just to be sure that we're consistent one end to the other.
I think I almost have to have a 1, 2, 3 down the
Oh,
line of what
yeah,
we do.
so I put you all on
Be
my list.
the pay part of it, that stuff, and then who, if they set a board up, they reorganize the board, what you're talking about, do something. If they come back with oversight, who's gonna come back to us and give us this solicitation? We, the board feels that person X needs to go on down the line. So we know how to expect something coming back in the future. Or just sort of them guidelines right down the road, I think, that needs
And,
to happen.
yeah, and I will say that I do have a person who is willing to go ahead and work on the board, once we establish where we're gonna go. So I do have an appointee can make, depending on whatever you decide to do for the good.
Just kind of I'm never reading out the door, but
Yeah.
I'm certainly not going to talk to Clint about it. What I see at this moment, just shooting from the hip a little bit, which is always dangerous, is that it's primarily a county activity. Again, it sounds like that's where it began. You typically do try to get all the municipalities involved in it if you can, because each of them has individual benefit from it as well. But right now, it sounds like, especially as you go into 19, it's the counties. So then, I would envision talking with that existing board, first what you want, what they wanted, seeing if we can match it up in the bylaws. Put that in place and make sure that everyone is on the same page with that. Then that's going to go down the road as to, well, what's the membership of that board going to look like? What is that board's function? What do you need for them to do? How's that going to work? It may not change a thing from what they're currently envisioned to do, but at least everyone has kind of stepped back one step and made sure, okay, we're all on the same page now, because we don't have other funding yet from those other members. Then those other potential participants. And if the cities then come in and say, we'd like to participate, and we'd like to pay in, there's elements of those bylaws that already contemplate that potential, so we try to leave that in place so that that's all there for them. And then it goes from there. It's going to be, you're right, it's going to take a little while to get that kind of chugging.
I don't know. When they set that difference up, everybody had a different pay scale. It looked like, I don't know whether, just to get our towns involved and set a reasonable amount to where they get one person for that amount or something, I don't know. Just ideas.
No.
Well, I think that's kind
No.
of what they were doing to begin with. I mean,
Yeah,
Hillsborough, Marion, and Peabody were not paying the same
Right.
amount.
None of them were, and I'm just wondering if it could be set at the same to where,
Yeah.
to get some, maybe a reasonable amount to where we can get some involvement, keep these people involved.
And that's the constant struggle in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
speaking from experience. Several of the surrounding counties have had EDCs for a long time. One of them is just setting up. Dickinson County went through and started and stopped and started and stopped. Got theirs going, and that's always the issue. How much are you going to pay?
Yeah.
And then every city comes and goes, what have you done for me?
Yeah.
Well, nothing.
Yeah.
You want me to give you money, but you haven't done anything for me yet. Well, yeah, there's a chicken and egg deal. And we need some
I
seed
can
money.
understand that.
Yeah, they're very pragmatic, and some of them are extraordinarily blunt.
Yeah.
And others, even after they've been in for a while, they'll get new members on a commission or a council who will come in immediately when they come up with a presentation, and you can bet on it. And I haven't seen you do anything, and I haven't been on it. So I'm just on this now for the first year, but what does that mean? Why are we throwing money at you? Well, they've got to justify their existence.
Yeah, well, we gotta get away from the negativity, because it makes it so hard to get people that are willing to serve.
Yes.
And sometimes people look at facts and trying for correction as negativity, but just like bringing all these issues out, I don't look at that as negativity, I look at that as doing the job right and closing all the gaps and making sure everybody knows, just like Brad said. We have not been on the same page for a while, and some people go to the meetings and we've had such a change of membership and board members, just a continual turnover. That in itself is negativity when you see that happening. So, I mean, it's not always just because somebody says something that goes against the grain is negative, it's just pointing something out to be changed. That's the way I look at it. But I'm glad that at least we're gonna try to change things
Yeah,
or get on the
I
same
think I
course.
hear Clint, I understand what he's saying, I just need to sit down with him.
Yeah.
It would be, in some ways, it would be nice, but again, if it's all one and the same animal, there's not a necessity to have two attorneys involved, but it's just nice because Josh has some history, and I'm asking anyway about where they went, what they've done, and what he was seeing. His summary letter was included with what I have, which is helpful in terms of some of the discussion, and they had to step back and do some things over again. But anyway, we'll see what we can work with.
Good. Okay. All right, so next on the agenda is Jesse, hot seat.
Morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
Good, how are you?
I'm great.
Good. Fuel bids, transport. Two of them there.
Yeah. Just two bidders, huh?
Yes,
Okay. And of course, the lower bid is right on the top.
yes.
Cooperative Grain and Supply for $18,725. I would make a motion to approve it. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Kent, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. The other thing I have is federal, request to exchange federal funds. That's not Diane. Need your signature on that. Every year there's federal fund exchange. This is the 75-25 split.
And that was kosher. Did you see that yet? No, go ahead. I'm paying
And,
attention to you, Jackie. I'm sorry.
So once, actually KDOT called me, this year, we're supposed to be getting 75-25, but it's actually 90-10 this year, on that, since there were some KDOT glitches on their behalf. So what we would be receiving out of that is $123,000, $798.54. Out of that 100, what is that, 50 or so, Brad?
151, 706, 77.
So.
Okay. Board, okay, did you want to see it any, is the board okay to sign it? Do you want to see it?
Turn it down.
We'll receive 123, 798.54.
Do you get this now, Tina?
Is the
Yes.
whole-
Thank you.
151?
151, I think.
I think he's asking for the number.
151, 706, 77.
You're welcome.
And that's the business I have for you.
That's all?
Yes.
Well, Jesse, I have a question for you. On the radius turns up there at the, at Windmill, I have a couple people asking, and I know this is your decision, okay? Some people want to keep it that wide because it makes it so nice now that they've experienced it. I don't know what I said I would ask you, that it would probably be your call. because
In
it
the
would probably
agreements,
be-
in the agreements, it's already signed that they would go back to the way they were.
Okay, so then that's not an option.
Correct.
Okay, that's fine. That's the answer. And then the second thing is I do want to thank you for putting the rock on the roads after the rain that we had.
Okay.
Some of the roads, the rock roads were pretty uppy,
Mhm.
and so I criticized you pretty hard in the public, so I think I'm gonna
Thank you.
pat you on the back today for doing a really good job this last
I'll
day or
let the
so,
guys know. Thank
keeping
you.
up with that on those rock
What did you do,
roads.
kick him last week?
I try to every week, don't you notice?
Well, kick him one week, then build him up.
Keep him on his toes.
Get me ready for next week, right?
Oh.
Okay.
No, but thank you for that.
All right. You two have anything? Nope.
Nope. Oh, are you thinking about something?
Somebody call me, I can't think of what it was right now, Jesse.
Okay. Call me if you need
Yeah.
to. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse.
And Brad, that email, are we getting along with the email number? Okay.
I'll try to give you a call.
Okay.
I was gonna do that this morning, I ran out of time.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yep. So next on the agenda is Ed Weezy's, EMS.
I am.
Good morning.
Go ahead. Good morning.
Okay, report for July, we ran 117 calls in July. 27 transfers, 3 cardiacs, 36 medical emergencies, 4 standbys, 1 motor vehicle accident, 9 falls, 33 non-transports, 3 canceled, 1 death. As far as calls for the year, Right now, we're 54 calls above last year, as it is right now. We were at 736 last year, and we're at 790 this year. Financials. We billed out $73,454.93. We brought in $61,119.94. We had to refund $231.89. And we had write-offs of $40,707.71. So far for the year, we billed out $576,319.77. We brought in $359.85.43. Refunds totaling $1333.25, and total write-offs of $203.97. Any questions about that?
I don't have any questions about that, but we're not going through budget anymore. We finalized that this morning. But I do have just one question, because I'm trying to understand the full budgeting process here. And I'm trying to determine, when you give your classes and stuff like that, and I asked Scott, our auditor and our CPA, last time when he was here, when you do your classes and things, where do you deposit that money into what line item? I never could find it.
It goes under the crew funds.
Goes under crew funds? I seen there was money under crew funds, I just didn't see what that was. In fact, I was gonna ask that question, where's that money come from? So, all right, that was my question.
Donations, stuff like that.
Okay.
Cities donate to the ambulance services in their towns, so it goes into that crew fund.
Oh, okay, so where the donations go into the crew fund of that particular town, and then the CPR classes and stuff, that money goes just distributed equal between the different, I see you have 3 or 4 different.
Most of the time it goes into Marion's crew fund. That way we can replace mannequins at no cost to the county, because that money's already there set for replacing mannequins and equipment for the classes. So.
Okay, that answers my question.
Yep.
Got a question too. Ed, how long does our contract run with Omni?
I think till the end of the year.
Is that a 1-year contract?
I think it's
annual. And what was that contract amount? It's like, is that 17,000?
It's a percentage. Percentage of what they bill.
Well, my question is that I understand that we could bring that back into in-house. Probably say
I don't recommend it. And the reason I went away from it was because of the burden it was putting on our staff in the office. And that's why I went away from it when I did. At that time, now, do I think Jamie can handle it? Absolutely. Do I think I need to hire another person in the office if we do that? Absolutely. So that's why I went away from doing the in-house billing and pushed it off to a company, because it was making one person's job too much. So.
Well, I've talked with her, and she understands that billing really well. And
oh, I think she could do it.
And
actually
she could probably even access some of that and do some of that, maybe even from home if need be.
So do you do overtime?
Well,
to do
no, I think it wouldn't be overtime. I think it might. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it may be a separate, something paid separately outside of what she's getting.
So,
I don't know.
can we
I'm
contract
just
it?
saying.
Can we contract it?
Not with her, no, not with the current employee, no.
So it would just have to be an increase in salary to do something like that, correct? Yeah.
Basically, if you're adding that to a current employee's duties, that would just go toward, it would just be overtime.
Just be
or
overtime.
comp time. I mean, she's set up on comp.
So
time,
paying overtime would not save us any money.
You know, again, like we talked during budget time, how do you calculate that in the budget?
Well, I know, it
You
can
know,
be, it
that's-
can be, yeah,
that's-
1 month not much, and the next month a whole bunch, I understand that.
It would make more sense if you are gonna bring it back in-house, would be to have have somebody do the billing and somebody else doing the administrative functions of
Right.
that.
That's why you're saying it'd
Yeah.
probably open up another position then.
Correct.
Yeah.
But even still, we're paying $4,000 to $5,000 a month for Omni. You wouldn't be paying another employee that same amount of money for to work a 40-hour week. On the average, from what I see.
Time you add insurance
From
and
what I see
benefits.
here and everything.
Yeah,
I bet it'd
I
be
mean, you
pretty
have to
close.
look at it.
Yeah, time you figure in the benefit package, it would,
I bet it would be pretty close. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to it at all, you know, but I don't
Something we can
want,
look at
I
the
don't
financial
want,
part of it, if you'd like, we can.
part of Jamie's
I can't
reason
just
for
answer
leaving
off the cuff.
Yeah.
the first time was she was doing way too much. And that was part of her reason for leaving the first time.
well, maybe we can look at that going forward. See if there's any cost benefit.
We can look at the financial part of it.
Yeah,
That's not a
yeah,
problem at all.
absolutely.
Is it up there, do you have it on the board real quick, like what you paid on me? I didn't know whether it was in the report or not.
No,
No, it's not on here.
Okay.
But we can pull all
Yeah, we
that
can
and kind of
pull
look at it.
I just.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But you wouldn't
I'm
disagree
not
with me, would
opposed.
you, Brad, that
No.
you can't contract with
Right.
a person who's already employed with you for the same job?
Right.
No,
Yeah.
you
We would
can't
have
do
all kinds
that.
of problems with that. It would be great if
I'm
we
thinking
could.
private
Yeah, we
sector.
can't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Otherwise, Ed would have been doing that one.
That was one of our biggest reasons for going with an outside company, is because the person that was in the billing office doing the billing wasn't getting done. It was getting shoved in the drawer and not being done. And so that's
Well,
why I.
Sure.
There are other certain advantages if you could go with a firm that does that all the time. I mean, they have some pretty good expertise in that.
And with the
But-
new laws that came out in the last few years, it was definitely beneficial for us.
I've heard of other counties that they actually make a lot more money with the private. I mean, you know, on the outcome, like you're saying.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I just think maybe it's something we should look at.
We can
Yeah,
definitely
absolutely.
put some numbers together.
I
so you
just
can see
knew
that side
for
of
a
it.
fact, we went from 300,000 to almost 600,000 since we went to that. So, yeah, we're spending a little money, but we're definitely bringing in a lot more
Yeah.
money. So, but yeah, we'll look at it. EMT class started Tuesday of last week. We have 7 from Marion County, and we have 3 from McPherson County. So,
Good.
with that, I'll pass these to Diane to start. I need you guys to sign them contracts for me.
How will those out-of-county workers pay back?
They pay us. They pay the county.
They're paying for
their
their
class.
class.
Yeah, but I mean,
The grant will go to that county. That county will reimburse us for the funds for the class.
but then what I'm saying though, is don't they have to work for us for?
No. They're applying for the grant through their county.
So they have to work for their county.
They have
They're
to work
paying the
for
full
their
price
county.
for the class.
Right.
So we're receiving income from them for the class.
We are?
Right.
Yes, $1,150.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. Well, that's
that's the difference.
that's what I was
Yeah.
concerned about. I mean,
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, we will receive payment for each one of them at $1,150
Okay.
each.
that's,
What's that? 4 months.
Give you something to do.
I think there's 4 Saturdays built in throughout the plan. And all of these people that you guys are signing off on have signed the state grant too, so they're also abided by the state
Oh.
grant.
This is completed.
Do you get these also? Thank you.
And then the only other thing I have is, the ambulance delivery date is 8/28, so next, Tuesday, we'll be here. So,
We do have the bids out for the lease purchase right now.
that's all I have.
Called ahead and asked him if he knew anything about what's going on down in Gospel area with their ambulance. I just wanted to alert the board that I think the fire department has purchased another building down there in the city of Gospel, and they're wanting to move their ambulance over, and I think they're wanting some funds from the county, the way I understand it. But I think we as a commission need to sort of decide on where we're, look at each one of these towns, all 5 of them, and see what, we don't know what's happening in Hillsborough. We don't know. I know that the small town fire departments are growing, getting more trucks and things, and I think that's why that, maybe that's what's happening in Gospel. I think, I know Peabody's is the same reason, and that building, as I talked about earlier, about 2 months ago, I don't know where it's at right now, but I did see the tanks leave that building, so I don't know, I haven't talked to the Fort Fire Board whether they're doing something with that yet. The one that I was talking about, that they was wanting to put the ambulance in, move it out of the fire station, so, out of Peabody, so, I guess we as a board need to decide what we are gonna do, because all these ambulances have been put in these fire department buildings for years with either no agreement or little agreement. We paid, at Peabody and Tampa, I don't know about Gospel, whether we pay anything on the utility bill down there for the fire department. I don't know whether we pay any in Gospel, but anyway, it's just an open-ended, deals. It's,
Were they gonna come to the commission,
well, that's what I'd like the commission to say. I mean, it needs to be.
I mean, I'd like for them to come if
Yeah.
they're planning on moving some stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't know nothing about it. So, I knew a year ago, we had an issue with the city at Gospel a year ago. They were wanting to throw that unit outside. And so the crew members there actually went to the city and talked to the city council over there, and they decided not to, and, you know, and kept it inside their city building. But, and then you know, it's just settled down from then, but, yeah,
I don't believe even Gossel even had a unit at one time, and then we come up with a spare unit, director's unit or something, and they put it down there for the first response. And that's how that all started, and that's been 15 years ago, maybe more than that. I don't remember how many years ago it started, a long time ago. I think it was when Shelley was here that she might have done something like that. But,
We don't want the units sitting outside.
yeah.
so anyway, that's,
You know, and my big thing is, if they're gonna start requesting funds, they need to do it during our budget time, so that way we can budget for that. Not just hit us with it and say, hey, you need to start paying and not be able to budget for it. So that's, in my opinion.
well, I think it's just an open-ended deal all everywhere. I don't know if there's any agreements. I haven't seen any, you know.
I think the only thing we pay is Tampa. We pay for their internet. There's something else we pay up there. There's something else we pay in Tampa, but I don't remember what it is. Part of the lights or something. But they send us.
Would the commission say then that we need to, if they're interested in doing anything, they need to come before us?
Sure.
Mm-hmm,
So
yeah.
I will get that passed to the mayor.
And I don't think we pay for their full internet, we pay part of it because we use it. But that's been set up for years
Yeah.
in Tampa. They send us a bill like quarterly or half year or something.
That's all I have for ambulance. I know of.
You have
I
anything
don't
else,
have
Ed?
anything else.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks.
Janine,
She's not gonna be here today.
she's not gonna be here today? No. So, Brad, you're the next man up.
Okay, let's go through the list here. The draft resolution, we discussed previously, but it's switching us around to the utilizing 9 members, 3 appointed from each jurisdiction.
Oh, okay, this
On
is
the
on.
planning commission.
Oh,
Planning
on
and zoning.
planning and zoning.
And I don't know if we want to wait until Emma's here or if that has any background or not. She had drafted, taken a shot at it. I made just a very few changes to this already. The only thing that still remains that I thought really needed to be discussed is how that you go about implementing this. Because as you're currently existing, they may not be 3, 3, and 3. I don't know that for a fact, but, so who picks first? You know, that part of it, does that make sense?
I'm sorry, start over again.
If you have, if you're going to set this up so that you have 9, and 3 are from each of the 3 commissioners' jurisdictions, how we begin to implement that as they come off, how we divide them 3, 3, and 3.
Well, they are on a rotation right now.
Right, but how are they being selected, right?
In the
Missing
county,
something.
it picks
Well, if one comes off that's in the first district, isn't it
The first
replaced by a
district.
first district?
That's what I would presume. Is it currently,
Yeah.
that in terms of the 3 districts, we have 3 and 3, 3 and 3?
Right.
Then that's moved, and there's nothing else I need to do. My concern was that you had 4 from one, 2 from another, and that we were gonna have to adjust. And I wasn't sure how that was gonna get done, and if you have an extra one in one of the jurisdictions.
No, that's not the way I understand it.
So, okay, then we're fine. Other than that, that basically just makes the appropriate amendment and change to it, puts that in place and codifies it.
Okay, so that right there is saying then that each commissioner appoints from their district.
Right.
Okay, and that's spelled out, I didn't read this, but that's spelled out in
And
there.
if we want to do it that way, you know, I just wanted to get it in front of you.
It says that way. It says
No,
planning commission members shall be.
Yeah, it just says it'll be appointed by the county commission.
Yes, 3 from each.
Yeah.
Right,
And if we want to do that differently,
3 from each. Okay, but I think what he's questioning is it's not saying that each commissioner appoints from their district. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. It's,
Okay.
it's appointed by the board.
right.
That's the way it has it here.
Now, the precedence has had it over forever, that like if he said first district comes up, then first district commissioner selects for that board.
This
Which
is supposed-
recommends, and then
Recommends,
it's an
yes, and then the
appointment.
board
Yeah.
approves.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so you said Emma brought this to you, is this, I mean, has she talked to you about this, or
Mm.
was this from?
She
okay.
talked- she
'Cause
sent me an email.
She didn't know why you were working on this, last I talked to her, so I didn't know if it was from the board asking for it, or
No,
where
it was my
from.
understanding that we needed to make that some type of codification to clarify that.
Okay,
And if that's.
she'll be here
Yeah,
later,
and if
so.
I missed that, then,
No,
Anyway.
no. Well, we did, because I was gonna bring it up anyway. I didn't get to it yet, but it was on my mind because, yes, I wanted to know exactly how that, because I know there's statutes and everything that say basically the same thing
Mhm.
throughout Kansas law. So, and every now and again, you do have somebody that will appoint somebody that somebody on the commission don't like, so then there needs to be a line as to who has precedence.
and how you wish to do that, I mean, I just basically need to codify it.
And it's right here, it's set by the board.
I was just asking for clarification,
Yeah.
that's all, so.
And it seemed like it was fairly straightforward, but I was making an assumption that she had already had these various conversations, and that this was something we were just needing to put before you in a final resolution.
Yeah, this was the first that I had heard of it, but that's fine. I mean, she could probably answer your questions about the rotation
Yeah.
pretty easily.
Well,
when
and it
she's
sounds
here.
like that may solve itself. My biggest concern was the implementation of it at that point, if it didn't already spread that way, but it sounds like it has.
Well, it does almost, as far as the appointments and things like that. But bringing this up, this is excellent that you brought this up, is because it would just seem to me as though it's common sense that if, in second district, Randy knows his people, and he was elected by his people to take care of his district, so he would be able to have the right to appoint whom he wants in his district. The same way with me, the same way with him. Why would I say, oh no, you can't have this guy, I want this other person, or something? That just doesn't
Yeah.
make sense to me.
Yeah.
So,
And I don't argue that at all. I mean, the logic of that is, I guess we might want to, probably behoove us when she gets here, just ask in terms of other things that she sees. I don't know what else.
well, it probably stemmed from last year. Is that what you said?
Let's see how she worded that.
But yeah, this doesn't say anything about what you said. If you
Yeah, this
wanna
just
appoint
basically
somebody
goes-
And then the others don't agree.
This just goes by, this is just vague, yes, and so while we're talking about it, I'd like to go ahead and clarify it and set it up the way the board wants it set up. I know I could never find anything either when I'm pressed to find it.
Yeah. I mean, but how would that work under this? I mean, if there is a disagreement of the board and the other two don't ratify the choice, then does she need to bring, whoever, need to bring something else, or would it?
I mean, she didn't really give me initially there the clarification I thought she did. I managed to slip through the cracks, so I may have misunderstood in this resolution. This is different from the ones I typically prepare, but I took a stab at it. The numbered verbiage, once reports taken from the proposed BZA bylaws, probably gonna be a good idea to have her come in and answer any additional questions as to how that arose, because that's kind of where it began when she sent me the initial draft.
Oh, because they said they were going to make some changes.
Right.
So that's why that,
So
yeah, I
maybe it
remember
came from the
talking to
planning
her,
commission.
yes, yes. Mhm. And so while we're doing this, and I know you said she'll be in a minute.
She will.
Get that. But I would bring up to you what happened last year was, I'm a firm believer in term limits. Okay? So you have some board members on planning and zoning, and other boards too, other areas, that have just been on there for term after term after term after term. So of course, when I was elected second district, and I campaigned on term limits. So one of my members came up for renewal of their term, and I chose, nothing against him personally, just to appoint somebody new on the board. And so I did that. And so the board did not like that. They wanted the same person to stay in. But yet it was my appointment, the way it's been done over years, even though it's not in writing, by precedent for 20 years. That's the way it's always been. And so we had a big hoop-de-doop here, as you can almost imagine, over the fact that I did not put this man in for another third or fourth term, whatever it was. And so that's probably where this is
And it
stemming
is.
from.
I got clear back. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We've been talking about a number of other changes and different things, and it's kind of buried in here. Since membership is statutorily determined by the governing body, our planning consultant suggested that a resolution signed by the governing body may be necessary to modify portions of the bylaw pertaining to membership. Review these annually, make changes administratively. This is the first time since I've been in office that changes to membership have been proposed. And that is a resolution required, which I told her if they were going to go ahead and make something substantive in terms of how they're chosen, that yes, the answer is that would be the case. That's what gave rise to this, and we
Yes.
went back and forth
Yes.
with just a few changes, all based upon what her consultant had recommended. And so I was doing it as to form more than anything else, thinking this was something that she'd been talking to you guys about.
So in so doing this, and I've seen some counties that do have it where it is by district, and that seems to work really well. So I don't know, I'm going to ask, do you have a problem doing that, Ken, since we've done that for years, or you want to clarify that or not?
You mean on the term limits?
No, just on the fact that first district, you would have the, since you're the first district
Right.
representative, that it would be your,
Right.
what would I say?
Bring the slate,
Appointment.
yeah.
Appointment.
Binding slate or
Your
Yes.
appointment.
So you think that it can go by district, would appoint that district? I agree. So that would be the way I would think that would be. And that would alleviate any, even if I don't like who he picks, that would be fine. That's still his pick, and I would have nothing to say about it. And
As it is right now, though, you nominate and vote, correct?
nominate, that is correct,
Yeah.
yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, well, that makes it a little more clear. We didn't talk about it in those terms at all.
Okay.
I just took an extra step in the process and thought, okay, we're just clarifying that it must be 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Well, that's already been done. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's what we need to clarify, is who has that authority. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, last time they did that, the chairman resigned, and then on a contingency effort, and they voted in, and that, it was upsetting to me that they pretty much self-appointed themselves. On a contingency that the chairman resigned and put this person she nominated in. So.
That's right, then that's also what happened, then it went into something. Emma, you can just come right up.
Okay.
We're talking about you anyway.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's quite all right.
But that is what happened then after I did make that appointment and the board didn't like it, then a member of their board appointed, well, he resigned on the contingency that that person stayed. Was that open another keg of worms?
Another question?
Yes, to take a resignation based on a contingency, on a requirement. So we're discussing your change in the resolution here.
Okay,
So,
okay, I'm sorry, I don't know where you're at in the conversation.
Our membership terms
Okay.
and stuff like that.
Okay.
I think she should talk about term limits.
Yes, and I believe we included that in this resolution.
So this came from the planning commission?
Yes, so
this
what we
discussion?
did, our planning commission met, and we do every year review our bylaws. And anytime we modify any portion of the membership requirements, those are required to go through you as the board, because you do determine membership for the planning commission and board of zoning appeals. So,
That was actually, and I don't know, I haven't seen an updated version of the resolution, but I emailed Mr. Jantz the resolution draft just stating these are the recommended changes based on the Planning Commission's recommendation to this board. And so that was discussed. I don't know, like I said, I don't know what's been modified, but everything in my initial draft is what the Planning Commission had agreed to.
And in terms of the operative sections, I didn't change any of that. I was
Okay.
careful not to because you
Okay.
guys had done that.
Thank
And I
you.
think had a consultant involved. All I did was make a few minor modifications in terms of what would be legalese.
Okay, yeah.
But the rest of it is pretty much just what you presented,
Great.
so.
And the terms are already staggered in case
Yes.
I just
Okay,
wasn't
good.
told that.
Then that's
So
not
if that
an
was
issue.
the question that you
And
had.
number 4, it's right in here, the planning commission may serve 3 consecutive 3-year terms. You said there's not term limits, well, there is term limits.
Well, that's on this one.
On-
And-
on
But
the
then it
resolution.
says that
Yeah.
if they want, to be able to be reappointed, they have to take a year break, is what I
Yep.
just read.
Yep.
So-
Yep.
So, okay, so this is saying each member.
Very hard to find.
And see, this is another thing that we do disagree on, and he has said this, it is hard to find people to volunteer on that. And that's a point that I totally disagree with, because there are a lot of people out there who would love to serve, but don't have the opportunity because Joe's been on there for ever.
The only concern, so we had a pretty significant discussion regarding term limits, and one of the main concerns was that it does take a little time to become familiar with zoning regulations and to learn just the way that zoning works in general. And so, some of those long-term members are very valuable because of their knowledge and because of their understanding. So, we did discuss it at length, and I think that's why, what we agreed to allows them to serve a longer term, but it still limits it to some extent. So that was our intention, was that, it allows somebody to become seasoned enough, but hopefully, still allows the opportunity for new people to come on board. So that's, we
And
tried to find
I do understand that entirely, and the way they're staggered on their appointments, it does also open the door for a new person to come in with all the other seasoned people
Exactly.
around them, so that still would, instead of a 3-year term consecutive, I don't know, I personally like 2, but.
The only reason we did 3 was because of the 3 districts. It allows it to rotate easily.
Smoothly.
Yeah, that was the reason for 3.
Okay, I'm sorry, and what I'm reading through, it says that they may serve 3 years. That
Yes.
doesn't mean that if they're not appointed though, because like if, for example, Joe is on his 2nd term and going on to his 3rd, and he wants to serve, he may, but if 1st District Commissioner coming in says, well, gee, I got Tom over here and he wants to do it now, that doesn't mean you have to stay with Joe, but Joe can.
Exactly.
Okay, so it still opens it up to where the commissioner has the option to review all that in
I would
the
do it, but I have
appointment
to
or
do
the
it.
nomination.
Well, yeah, and it'd be, at the end of their term is, unless we have had people, resign midterm,
Sure,
then
but it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we're still back to the same thing, that each district would have the appointing authority, as I understand it.
Nominating.
Nominating.
The way this is,
Nominating,
is set up,
yeah,
and then
sorry,
the
yes.
approval of the full board is the way it's currently set up.
Mhm.
That's how this continues to be.
Did you want to make that any more different so that it is, okay, well, it's still the same thing, that you would have the
I
authority.
think it's very clear.
Yeah, okay.
Most of the board was there when this all was discussed.
I think we had every member in
Cool.
attendance that night.
Didn't know sounding.
We may have, Brad Vannacker may have been absent. We may have one board member absent that night.
Okay. I'm ready to move ahead with it.
So I do want to ask one other question. In the event that something similar to that would come up again, let's just suppose that next year Randy does appoint somebody and the existing board member, or he wants to go with somebody different, somebody approaches him and wants to serve or something. So his time's come to appoint. And then Kent and I say, no, we don't like that. We want this guy to stay there for another term. Is there a way to solve that, or would there be a process
Yes.
in that besides duking it out up here?
Duking it out. You have the same issue that occurs in a midterm setting where someone resigns or is unable to serve, like in a municipality setting. The mayor, in that instance, in this case, each one of you, if it's coming from your particular district, has the power of who's nominated. The others don't get to appoint someone else. The way this is done right now, it's that control, that element of it still vests with each district commissioner.
Okay.
Now, the other two vote no, that commissioner can come back technically with the same person the next meeting over and over and over again. And that,
okay,
they've
okay.
changed the law in the last year with municipalities where you don't get it done within a specified period of time, it forces a special election. You don't have that line within, as far as I can tell, in our system currently. You know, they can come back to the same person and be insistent, this is what I want. You can keep voting no, but we'll just have an absence on there till, you know, something else happens, or they can bring someone else. The other members of the board don't get to nominate. It's each of your districts pick.
Okay.
That's the power you have right now.
Okay, perfect. I didn't know that earlier, but that's good to know. Okay, no,
That's part of what I was looking into. Brett said it to me. Trying to figure out, okay, how does that work? And had to go digging around for a while. So
is this something the board wants to move forward with today? If so, it's 18-22.
I'm okay with it. Are you okay with it? You okay with it? Okay, so then I'll go ahead. I'm sorry, you said it was 18 what?
18-22.
1822. Okay, so I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept Resolution 1822, a resolution concerning membership of the Marion County Planning Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals. Do I have a second? Second by Randy. All in favor, say aye.
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 okay, that was one of the quick ones.
That was quick. Yeah.
I don't know how you want to do this in terms of Emma's time.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
She's just
I do
occupying the chair.
have one where we may need we do need a brief executive session on matters of potential litigation, and as to that, she may need to be invited in.
Okay.
I'm not being sued. So I don't know whether we want to do that next, or just have me run through some of the others and do that at the last of mine.
You want to run through the others?
Yeah, why don't I do that?
Yeah, then she'll be up there. Yeah, then.
So wait,
BBC.
Oh, sure. You got time.
All right.
Thank you.
As to the video redaction issue I mentioned before, where the county and various law enforcement agencies in the county are looking to join in this, it appears that the interlocal is my choice. So I'm going to finish that and bring it to you. I didn't get that word until Friday. So I've got it drafted both ways, but I kind of wanted a preliminary opinion from the AG's office on a couple of things before I have to go through all the work and passing that. But hopefully that will solve itself at that point. So that
Showing video in a case, is that what you're talking
yeah,
about?
and at this point, we've got the ability based upon body cams and that sort of thing, where there's a significant amount of digital technology in use, and there's a lot of evidence, like recording through the county and then each of the cities as well, where that potential exists. And so in the form of discovery, you have attorneys coming in and saying, I want a copy of everything that you've got. Well, there's some elements of it in certain instances particularly, and in other types of cases where juveniles may be involved where we redact. And they pull certain pieces of it, and they now have software available that will allow that to be done fairly efficiently. As I understand this whole thing, the county would be the one fronting it through Courtney's office, but there is a repayment of a portion of it from the other participating agencies with the other law enforcement entities in the county. Then each of them will have access to it, and each of them will use it, but I presume that will all be here and housed on site with the county. So we got into back and forth discussions about, okay, you're helping fund it, you're also controlling it, you're also using it for your own purposes, but yet it still all runs through the sheriff's department. It will be housed there, be maintained there. I don't know if there's one person who then is in charge of all of that. I'm not part of that process, but they're working their way through that. And by the time I got through looking at the statute, it looks like an interlocal. They had proposed doing a memorandum of understanding, which I'd much prefer. It's a lot simpler. And we don't have all the extra steps in that process, but it just doesn't look right now that we can survive that and get it done that way without having a more formalized agreement in a form of an interlocal based upon community who has what authority. So long and short of it, that appears to be where we're headed. So I had, as I said previously, drafted kind of a rough out of both, thinking whichever way they want to go, but the indication I'm getting from the G's office is probably what you're going to need. So, because I can convince them otherwise, that's where that's headed. Workforce agreements already been agreed to. Again, at some point, move lead us along was resolutions regarding private citizen work. This hasn't changed since the last time we saw it, other than a couple of grammatical things to clarify and make it a little easier. And these are done in the alternative.
Can't shut it.
Can't shut it.
Got an attorney here.
Sorry.
Can she shut it part way?
No.
No.
Okay, nope.
Pass two of them out.
Yeah, those are the two that are juxtaposed against each other. One of them is we won't ever pay, and one we will consider if you apply. As I had told you, I'd produce it both ways at your request. And then the last one is just as brief as I can make it, a prohibition on utilizing public property to park your bales, put everything else that you want to, there's been that discussion about we're having problems occasionally with that. That really, the law already gives us that opportunity. This just basically puts something in place in the form of a resolution that if anyone in the private sector decides they're going to go ahead and do that, we reserve the right to civilly or criminally pursue it, and it is prohibited. You can't go ahead and, in essence, preempt public property for private use, which happens all the time, and I realize it. I watch it every time I drive down the highway. But that was one that I just put out there. We can make it much longer. I can turn it into a 12-page deal, or I can keep it very simplistic. Just putting in place that reminder to people. I did put a 10-day notice requirement that if someone did do that, and Jesse or someone saw it, we could send it by certified mail or personal service a notice. You got 10 days to rectify it. If you don't, we'll pursue what we have to do if we have to. Fully at your discretion. You don't have to do it each and every time. It's a matter of how egregious it is and what you feel is appropriate or what your staff recommends to you.
And so having said that, based on bails or something in that case, within the 10 days and they don't remove it, you know, let's face it, with a road grade, you just take and push them bails right back and we can do our work. And that would be a way of remedy also, right?
Yeah, it just basically puts us in a position of, again, saying what's obvious, I think, in some ways, but you know, a lot of the times you do it just because you want to make sure people understand we have a resolution in place, recognizing that this is an issue apparently on occasion and we need to go ahead and handle it and make sure everybody's aware. You normally think everybody would be aware of it, but most people don't.
So, do you have any problem with that? That seems to be the easier one at this moment. Do you have a problem with that?
Not really. Would this address the problems of farming county property also?
Yep. Storing personal property, or what I did was, you know, you appropriate it for your own use. And you, and I can, that's a typical example of what I was talking about. I can specify all those things, kind of the for instances, but not limited to, if you'd like. If you know something more specific about that purpose as well, because that's the other most common one. They'll either put stuff out there on public right-of-way, or we just keep farming into the ditch. Right. So there isn't a ditch.
So it's under the road.
Yeah.
And we have to give them a notice.
Yeah, and I put that in there. I just figured that way if we do go out and we exercise self-help, we give them notice.
Right, so we can't just go push the bales out of the way and we have to let them know.
Yeah, I was presuming we give them the notice.
The 10 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's what I meant. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, exactly, yes, we're on the same page, yeah. Personally, I think maybe you should specify farming to the road, because somebody will throw that in
Yeah,
our face.
I'm happy to do
That
that.
one, that
Because
one.
I looked at it for a while, I thought, how far do I go? I'll start with this, and this is as simple as I can make it, and I'm happy to add whatever else you guys want in that.
Basically, farming to the road would cover any instant, I mean, it would cover the bales and everything.
Yeah, yeah. And I leave this in anyway, and just
Yeah.
put that with it.
Sure.
Just another paragraph.
Do you have anything you want added or anything, Randy?
No, just as long as somebody don't use it for spite things to get at people. That's the worst part of it.
Other than that, you're okay with it? Just-
Yeah,
Of course, you can never get around somebody doing something to
Yeah.
spite, no matter what you do. Spiteful people are there. Okay. So, to add that one thing, and then we're okay with it?
I'm good with it.
Okay,
Okay, I'll make that change and bring it back.
okay.
Then the other one is the one we've looked at multiple times. It's a matter of which one you like. If you want absolutely no potential compensation for someone in the private sector doing some of this work that you've run into before, then the first of the two I handed out is going to be the appropriate one. If you're willing to at least consider applications, if they do something or want to do something that they make to you in advance and you're going to pay for it, then the other one covers that. It's the only difference between the two.
So I have to ask this question. If we take that one where we don't pay anything, they still could come before us and ask for a variance or something like that, right?
I mean, an exception to
An
it?
exception would be the word, I guess I would say, yes. That would not eliminate
Yeah.
them from coming to say, now I know I can't do this, but in this case, I would like to have an exception or something. We would still have that option, wouldn't we?
Says that the county will, as a matter of normal business practice, not
Yeah.
entertain or approve reimbursement.
I did leave wood, I got the word, put my wiggle room and everything.
Okay,
Yeah.
it says what?
Normal business practice. So basically, you'd have to have something extraordinary, but yes, if you had something that you could note that was just really a unique experience, it just creates, this is what we're gonna do. We're not gonna pay it. Now, if it's something just really, really out of the ordinary, you would have some latitude, yes, because you can use that as your exception. So it wasn't in the normal business practice for us, and so we did it this one time.
And it still, even in that case, it still requires
Yeah, the
review
advance.
in advance of the work.
Yep. I didn't want to take that out in either case, because I thought if you have them do it and then it's kind of asking for forgiveness instead of permission, that doesn't work really well either. So I thought in either instance, you have the ability to say, you got to tell us in advance before you do this.
Right.
And otherwise, there's really no hope of getting anything.
Right.
It's just how strongly you want to word it. You know, I want to say the normal is we're not going to ever pay. If you do this privately, you know you're spending the money and it's on you. And the other, it's no, you can come to us with something that you have been doing for the last 7 or 8 years, but you want us to pay for it. And so, all up to you.
But it's also
In
pre-approved.
advance.
Yeah.
It's got to be in advance. That's what policy we have. And that's,
Yeah, and that was the one thing you all seemed to consistently agree upon, that they need to tell us first.
And we do all agree on that. That's true. Unfortunately, they don't always come to us first, and then that's where we get into problems. So, personally, I like the harsher one, because even though it's harsher and just says we will not pay, that is a deterrent right there, just by doing that. But then still does give us the flexibility in certain events to accommodate certain things.
It doesn't completely eliminate it. I could write a third one if you like.
No, that's fine. That's just my thoughts. Kent, what do you say?
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't want to eliminate
Everything.
everything, right.
But we do want to start a standard. Randy, are you okay with that?
well, I'm agreeable to the other one. I think it's there, it's right, plain and simple, that if they don't come in advance, they don't do it, that we still have, we make the choice whether we do or whether we don't pay, but, you know, wait to get the bills afterwards, that's, and then how do they expect other people that's living all over the county to not come in and ask for the same thing as far as rock and stuff like that, so, yeah, the decision needs to be made here before it's ever done, and that's why I say I like to have a little flexibility whether we do make that kind of decision. I don't know what the case will be, who knows? Has been rock on the roads, but there could be something else.
So I guess, what we would need to do is make a motion for one and see where it goes, right? And I'm not sure which one of these I have.
You have both, if you look in paragraph 4, you'll see the difference.
Okay.
It talks about normal business practice in the third line down. That's the one that initially presupposes that county will pay nothing, will not entertain any
Yeah,
reimbursement.
it only has 5 points, and then the
Right.
one that talks about the possibility of reimbursement.
Has actually 7, I think.
So that's the case to here. Okay, what would the resolution number be? Do you have one?
It's 18-23.
So I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to approve resolution 18-22 as a resolution of the county of Marion establishing a comprehensive policy regarding participation of private citizens on the ongoing maintenance, repair, or improvement of public policy in Marion County, Kansas. And this is the one that says that the county will not pay anything, as it's written, knowing that we have options for exemptions.
That one still gives us the option though
Yes.
to approve.
It talks about normal business practice, so
Yes.
if you had something extraordinary, it raises the bar. It does go ahead and make it more.
What's extraordinary?
It would have to be kind of a once in a lifetime kind of a thing. It's, hard.
And who would be the one to determine that?
You do.
Yeah,
You do.
so,
If you have one of the 100-year floods, and somebody's come in and done something, that's probably gonna fall outside your normal business practice. It isn't something you see every year, year in and out. But what this is gonna do is make it more difficult for people who have come in, they've made the practice for, let's say, the last 10 years, if that in fact exists, to put rock at a particular location on year to year. And they've always done it, and now they've decided they'd like to come in, and you've allowed it. Well, you give you the option not to allow it. They come in, they're like, well, this isn't anything unusual. That's all.
So we wouldn't have any problem with the guy that decides he's gonna go get a load of sand and spread it in front of his house and doesn't say anything to it, doesn't ask us for anything, but his neighbor turns it in. Says, why is he doing that?
Yeah.
his neighbor wouldn't have that option.
I mean, we still wouldn't have a problem.
Right. Because he's not asked for anything in that particular instance. Now, you could have a problem if you decide you don't like what he did, or Jesse comes in and says, this isn't working. What they're doing is making more work for us rather than less, but then you tell them, you didn't come in advance, don't do it.
Even if they're
And
supposed to unload the sand on their road though, like Kent was talking about, that man over there better be notified. Because that's part of the
Yeah.
rule. I mean, we don't want to have traffic.
Still public,
accidents.
it's still public maintenance.
Yeah.
And you're responsible.
Make sure.
So, motion was made, 1823 resolution, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Kent, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same side.
Aye.
Any opposes?
Okay,
Okay.
can I get, I wrote on mine, so
Yep.
can I get those in? And I can make a copy of it.
This one,
Maybe, did you write on yours?
Did I write on mine, just the number?
Okay. Then we can just use yours, if that's okay.
The next one that I have, it's just a little bit of additional guidance, because in all my notes, I never did reflect a final consensus or instruction on the Morris County, Marion County agreement on that chip seal. Whether we simply want to rescind the agreement entirely, or whether we want to amend it, as both were discussed.
Yes, we have Jesse, he gave us some points on why he was wanting to know about it and things like that. And I think if I understand correctly, you didn't mind doing it, but yet, this year it just didn't work.
For Morris County?
The Morris County had that
Chip
agreement.
seal?
Yeah, they've already done their chip seal
Yeah.
job. We've already done ours on that portion.
Right, I think the question is, that agreement is still in place by resolution, and whether we want to
Change it in some way.
amend it and keep it to where, you know, you have the option to accept or decline each time, or whether you just want to completely do away with the agreement. I think that's what
Right,
Brad's
that's
needing to
exactly it.
know.
I'd like to see it be gone with completely.
Just rescind it?
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be my opinion.
Makes it real easy.
So we're going to make a motion to do that?
I'll make a motion to rescind the.
I have a motion by Kent to rescind the Morris County resolution on the 1 mile chip and seal.
Actually, you don't even need to, I don't need to interject,
Oh.
but at this point, I'll bring a rescission of that to you, and that, then you
Okay.
have something formal to act upon, and Tina has something to put in her minutes. So
Okay.
I just needed to know which way I was going with it.
Okay.
The tech support bidding, I mentioned again last time, and we're still at a stage where there's been no action taken on that. Something needs to happen in terms of finalization, one way or the other, whether it's a rejection of all bids or some final action to be taken as to that.
That's a big one. So on that right there, in my opinion, either we reject all the bids, we certainly do not reward bad behavior because there was a lot of inconsistencies on that with what was actually proposed to us. So I would say either we reject them all or we at least disqualify Great Plains since it was one of their associates that gave us the presentation, and the presentation that they gave to us had misrepresentations in it.
Yeah, I don't think that there was any intentions of any foul play of any type, nothing like that. But I don't believe that we've been presented with, who'd you call, what was the name of their company?
Great Plains?
Great Plains, yeah.
Mhm.
We've been presented, they wanted to become a county employee at one time.
Mhm.
And I visited with him about that, and I don't think that's even an issue right now anyway. So, I mean, unless I hear some other discussion, you know, I guess we reject the bids, but, you know, unless there's other plans with something, go ahead with one of the other plans or something like that. Well, I talked to Lloyd himself, and I know what he's told me.
Okay. So you're saying that rejecting all the bids would be?
Well, unless somebody else wants to go with one of the bids on there and do something with them, you know, that's the way, or continue as is. I mean, that's sort of my feeling that I got from Lloyd. He'd like to continue as is.
There are some other good bidders, lower bidders in the process. Now, I don't have a preference here. I don't have a preference. If you want to, I'm going to leave it basically to the two of you, as long as, I mean, either we reject them, or if you want to pick another one, it's up to you. So what do you think, Ken?
I think we should reject all of them. I mean, going forward, we still have support, but that support could be gone tomorrow.
We have that faced all the time on different things, yes. So, okay, so do we need to make a motion on that or not? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to, I'm sorry, I'm gonna make a motion on the floor to reject all bids in the IT. Do I have a second? Second by Randy, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Did you read through all those, Mr. Jantz, and notice what I was saying?
Yeah, I mean, and I was obviously president, and then I've gotten some additional input since, and so the other elements of that are a little more up in the air for me, but really just a matter of, so that you bring some finalization to this, will either need to be rejected or something needs to be done. So, in fairness to home bidders and bringing closure to it.
May I ask you a question, and while we're on bidding subject matter? It was brought to my attention that you cannot, and I don't know the particulars on this, I didn't follow up with it, but somehow there's laws or statutes or something that when you put out bids, and they go out across county lines and things like that, that you cannot then just stay in county and pick things. Am I on the right track, or do I need to pursue a little bit more information?
It would depend
for that?
upon the request. If you do a proposal, and you indicate, for example, if you constrain yourself to say that it will absolutely be lowest bidder, then that, for example, constrains you as to what you're going to do. If you don't do that, you are not compelled, and unless it's a certain type of a contract involving certain federal funds or certain state funds where they specify certain things for, what's the term for these folks? You have bidders who fall into a certain classification based on being the word escapes me right now, but they are a group of bidders that they're trying to promote minority contracts or those kinds of things. They can specify certain grant funds are being provided to you as a county, that you will do a certain way and you will select from a certain pool. Short of that, you pretty much have carte blanche authority to select. Can you specify if they go out beyond the county that you will only accept an in-county?
Who would put a bid in there?
Yeah, that's a
time-consuming.
practical or a pragmatic decision there
Yeah.
that you don't have to do. So-
Other than the situations that you was talking about though, on the bid, you can put, low bid may not be accepted.
Yes. There are certain instances, and I say that with some fear, where you can indicate that there are certain preferences given for certain things. You have to be real careful with that, but that can even include geography at times, because it's just by definition going to be far less expensive and more readily available to you, but that's really rare. I can't think of a good example right now, but
Of doing that?
yeah, but I've seen it.
Because the process of putting out bids anyway is normally to get the best job for
Yeah.
the least amount of money.
Yeah. Yeah, your whole function is to try to get the best product for the least investment, if you can, within reason. Certain times you're going to consider promoting local economic concerns as well, but, that's what you're looking for.
So that company slips in that gives you bad service, and the person that's concerned with that bid comes in and says, I can't get them to answer, can't do this, they don't bring their stuff, well then, that's grounds to me
Right.
that I move up to another bidder and go on.
Yeah, and you do, you're not handcuffed to a great extent, or nearly as much as a lot of people might assume you are. The last, actually, it's just a single executive to deal with several litigation matters, potential litigation matters.
Okay. So, would you want to do that now or after?
However, the board wants to do that. We can do it, after everyone, since we've got a bunch of people waiting.
Yeah, why don't we do it afterwards?
Do that.
Okay. Is that all you have?
No, but that's what we're going to get to today.
Okay. All right, so next is Emma. Back up in the hot seat.
Okay. Do we want to just address so we have several people present here regarding applications for a conditional use permit for 2 Met towers. Do we want to just address that first, and then, or do you want, I have several items as well, so I can do this however we'd like
Well,
to do it.
it's however you want to present it, that's fine.
Okay, so I'll start with those first. So at our most recent planning commission meeting, we did have we heard them as 2 separate applications. However, they were from the same applicant, Expedition Wind, and this group is now also representing a portion of the Doyle project. So it's formerly known as the Doyle project. So we are looking in these applications. We are looking to. These are outside of the existing permitted area. So these are west of the existing conditional use permit. So what we're considering are just simply meteorological towers, which are, their purpose is to gather data. All that data is collected and then sent remotely. So it's not necessarily a wind project in the event that they were wanting to construct a WEX project. An additional conditional use permit would then have to be applied for and granted at that time. So these are independent of it, but it is the same group. So that being said, just the details of the application. We did receive the application in its entirety on June 29th. Proper publication was given on July the 11th, and notice was sent to all the neighbors. Signs were posted at the sites as well, so they were we actually did receive some calls regarding the signs that had been posted. So there are two separate locations. The first location is near the intersection of 100th and Mustang, and the second location is near 140th and Old Mill. During the process, we had some just general inquiry, but no, I would say no really negative comments or any sources, any communication from the public in that regard. The public hearing was then held on August the 2nd, and it was recommended, both were recommended for approval by the Planning Commission Board. At that time, there was some good discussion regarding, what a Met Tower does, what its purpose is, and it really was, and Diane, you were present, it was good discussion. It was good discussion. I would like to allow, the applicant is here, they are present. We have two individuals here from Expedition, yes. And I'm sorry, we have Mr. Pat Pellstring and then Lindsay Ransom. Lindsay Ransom. So they are here on behalf of the applicant. They were present they had two other individuals present at the public hearing for the Planning Commission Board as well. So really at this time, what we're looking to do is the Met Towers only. So there would be two individual towers. The property would be accessed only for installation and maintenance as needed, which we expect to be minimal. Like I said, the data is collected and submitted remotely, so it's not something where we would really need any sort of, the road improvement, nothing of that nature would need to be done. The first location, there's one, so the 140th and Old Mill, the entrance is actually off of 140th, which it's a good road. There's an existing field entrance that can be utilized. And then the second location at 100th and Mustang, it is not an improved road, but I did visit with Jesse. There's an existing field entrance that will be used there as well, and there weren't really any concerns about that location either. Neither one, the parcels are just strictly ag ground. There's no structures present on either of those properties currently.
Before we go any further, there's questions I'd like to ask Rex back here, and we're talking Met Towers again. Rex, is the one still up there by the feedlots? Is it still up on, or south of the
We
feedlots?
have two Met Towers up and operating. One is on 110th.
And 110th and?
And it's a little over a mile west of Sunflower.
Yes, it's still up?
Yes. And the second one is on the Cox property, which would be south of 130th and west of Upland.
Okay. Are those outdated? I mean,
No, they're operating.
They're still operating? Okay, we still have the permits and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I will say we did recommend conditions, and one of those addresses your question there. So within the application, it was stated that these would be temporary in nature. So that was included in here, and we did actually say that they shall not be in place for a period of more than 5 years. In order to continue after that time, an application would need to be reapplied.
Okay.
So we did include that as a condition on both of these,
Okay.
towers. So, and that, like I said, that was something that was actually in their application, that these would be temporary. So that was the first condition. The second was that if it is voluntarily dismantled by the owner applicant, then the permit is null and void at that time. So,
That's what.
yeah, so if it, and when we included voluntary, so that if it's damaged by storm, anything like that, they can go in and rebuild or repair as needed. But if they take it down out of their own will, then it would void the permit at that time. The next condition we included was that if it was unused for a period of 6 months or more, then it would be declared abandoned and required to be removed. That there was some discussion regarding that, as it would be difficult to determine whether it's abandoned or not. but it would be, if it were clearly inoperable, if it were damaged to the point where it's inoperable and not repaired for a period of 6 months, that's the type of scenario where this might apply. The next would be the next two are just kind of our standard conditions, which are strict adherence to the development plan of record. So they can't go and put it in a completely different location, that type of thing. And then also adherence to all applicable federal, state, and local regulations. So those were the thoughts of the Planning Commission board, but I don't know if you have any further questions for me or for the applicant.
Well, you pretty much said everything that I had, because you said that this was just for the Met Towers, and it does not necessarily mean that permitting for wind energy or any of that's gonna take place at this time.
Not at this time.
This is just for the Met Towers.
Just for Met Towers, yes.
On these two individual properties.
Yes, so it's for these just individual parcels.
Okay.
Are you going to let the representative speak?
Yeah, they would like to.
Sure. I'm about 3 weeks off of hip surgery, so I'll limp a little bit. But once I get going, I'm pretty quick. Madam Chairwoman, and Commissioners, thank you. It's good to be back. I had a chance, I think, to address you a couple of months ago. Since then, I know Jesse has been back from our staff. Lindsay is our leasing specialist, and we do have a landowners meeting tonight. I want to address just a couple questions. Why 2 more Met Towers? Well, first of all, let me tell you that the first 2 Met Towers, even though Rex is correct, they're both operating. We're going to go in and rehab those because the precision of the instrumentation on the top of those Met Towers is critical for our success. The more Met Towers you have, the better your evaluation of the wind on the site is. You're able to kind of compare each one. And having the value of a couple of Met Towers that have been there for a number of years, within 3 to 6 months, we'll be able to compare the numbers on the new Met Tower and understand if there's any differences in the 2 areas. So what we're doing, I think, is pretty common. Just a quick update on where we are. We have closed on the project and are in full control of all of the assets now. That is only the Windborne and the Sunwind assets. We did not close, chose not to close on the top-notch assets. We're proceeding on a process, and we clearly understand that until we get the turbine arrays laid out, file for FAA to get their approval, at that stage, planning probably 3 to 6 months from now, we'll be back to amend or add additional CUPs. And we would anticipate that we would follow your current guidelines. We understand some of those have been updated, and we've been working with them on that. Would expect to follow those. Just from a progress report, it's difficult to say too much, but we're pretty optimistic in terms of our opportunity to build this project in the next 12 months, start construction. Our partner is a company called Ares. It's an energy investment fund out of New York. They have, I can't comprehend this amount of money, but I can say it. It's $112 billion under management. And they're a publicly held company. They've got 10 gigawatts of electrical projects around the country that they own or are partners with. They're our partner. They're providing some of the development capital. And the better step in this case is we will collectively own that project together once it's done. In other words, you're not going to get a new owner. Just, and so they bring with them the capital to do the development and to own the project. And it's another $260 million that we have to put into this thing to get the first 200 megawatts built. Our primary objective is the first 200 megawatts. Our understanding, given the current status of the CUPs, that we would be responsible for about $800,000 a year in tax payments to the county off that project. We would like to continue to expand this project, maybe up to another 150 megawatts. I don't have a specific schedule on that as yet. We need interconnection, which is what takes the longest, and so that's, if we started construction on this project next year, it would probably be at least 2 more years after that before we could build the other 150 megawatts. But we want to be a long-term partner with you in this area. So, any questions, we're happy to address.
Just one more, the reason why I asked Rex that question was because do you have a lot of contracts going out, or people, have you made a lot of contact with people, landowners, and it's further south of, towards Peabody, and are they getting, that's where I got a letter from the landowner had a letter that there was going to be.
Most of our emphasis has been to the west of the primary footprint, the Fairfield.
North of Peabody.
Yeah, yeah, but it's coming further south than what it has.
It's still well north of 55 West.
Yeah, but this person owns ground 2 miles north of town.
Okay, then they could have been included.
Yeah, that's probably the southern edge of where we'd like to go. As you get into the river area, you start to lose elevation, you start to lose wind, so I think we're pretty focused and direct on where we're looking forward to it. We've increased the lease amounts so that both on the development period payment and ultimately when they're operating, we're going to discuss that with landowners tonight, that they will be making another 70% more than under the original leases, which we think is the fair way to move forward.
So I have a question. So this is an entirely new company. You have purchased or transferred from Mr. Savage. This is entirely new now.
Yeah, we purchased the assets. We didn't purchase Windborne or Sunwind. And Windborne, I think, is a local group that you're familiar with. I think pretty well established. Sunwind had its problems. And fortunately, when you got a $112 billion equity fund, their attorneys, in fact, their attorneys make more in a day than I make in 6 months, you know. But they were pretty careful, making sure that by the time we acquired the assets, we had something that was valuable and free and clear from any of the issues that preceded them.
So I do have one more question. Because
Sure.
of the experience that we've had from the wind tower company up north, okay? As I hear what you're saying is you have a landowners meeting tonight.
Yep.
And you're now, with Ms. Random, going out and contacting these various landowners and establishing these various leases to people who wish to participate. So therefore, am I to understand that any of the existing contracts that Rex had, like the decommissioning or the road maintenance, that all has to start all over again with you once you apply for those, when we get to that point?
Yeah, in the new areas, we acquired the existing land leases that are already in place and the CUPs that apply to those. And we're prepared to move forward and build the project based upon those CUPs. In any of the new land we've got, we know we have to come back and get another CUP or one or more.
And road maintenance agreement and so on?
And road maintenance,
Because I don't
absolutely.
think anything like that is in place. I may be wrong, but I'm just asking. So you're prepared to come in?
Not as yet, but, you know, we built 8, 9 projects, and that's a common need at this stage. And I met Jesse today, and I know he wants his roads better than when we started, so that'll be our objective too.
Okay. So then so that's different, that will be coming down the road.
That will
then.
be coming, absolutely.
That's my question.
There was no prior road maintenance agreement?
Yes, sir.
There was one?
Absolutely, and those apply on the current leases, but what I think Pat's trying to express is they know that on additional acreage they add in, they're gonna have to come back in and talk to you folks about that.
I'd like to see those agreements.
They're public record, Tina's got
Yeah,
them.
I have them. I have them, and I do have some questions or concerns that we could at least talk about them sometime or something, because they're old.
Absolutely.
And they're,
If we can address any of your concerns early on and make sure by the time we apply for the CUP, we've already addressed them, that's the better way to go at
if we
it.
could somehow get a meeting or something of us or something, because
Sure,
I
Emma, I'd
think
be happy
because
to
of
have
the
Emma.
age, I do think we need to And like I
Yep.
say, this is fresh in my mind from what we're experiencing up north.
Okay,
So-
well, we want to be good partners with you, so we absolutely would do that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That would make
Okay.
me happier.
All right. I'll work with Emma and we'll get something like that set up. Any other questions?
So you would stay the owner and operator of this?
Yes.
Okay, so agreements get signed and you guys don't disappear?
We aren't, yeah, deep in the night, we're gone, right? No.
Well, that's, yeah, okay. That's kinda good to
We
know.
are, our agreement with Aries is a partnership agreement.
Partnership.
They've invested so far, they'll invest the bulk, they got more money than I do, that's for sure. So, but we will stay as part of the operation too.
And could you give me the correct spelling of Aries? I could spell it 10 ways.
ARES.
Oh, that's what okay. I thought that was too simple.
And this is it's their energy and infrastructure fund. They've got a whole series of divisions, but.
Where are they from?
They're based out of New York. And they've got, as I said, about 10 gigawatts of projects that they've funded all over the country. So,
Is their name on those all over the country too? I mean, their name
Yes.
is tied in with them?
yeah. That, you always put them in a project company like
Yeah.
Expedition, but they are owners in each of the project companies. So, okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Yes.
I'm glad to hear that you want to do a set of meetings prior on this. That is how we actually handled it when we came through the first time, and I think it relieved a lot of stress. Because it's all new to everybody. And we were feeling our way in, trying to figure out how to make it work. I think part of the stress you've maybe felt from up north is it wasn't approached that way there.
Right, exactly.
So, for my nickel's worth as an interested observer, I would very much encourage you to work proactively with Expedition and iron these issues out before everybody's got their blood out.
Right, and I know Randy brought that up even to the company up north, that he was disturbed how that went around, and then we were the last ones to know anything and caught in the box.
Right.
And, yeah, and there was a lot of bad blood there already.
So I'm
So,
very
I
glad that
appreciate
you're
that
wanting as a
because-
body to do that, and I think Pat and Lindsay will find that much less stressful.
And I think that's part of the purpose of, as I said, the second time I've been here. I know Jesse's been in town 2 or 3 times. We continue to work with Rex on the leasing. He's got the relationships. We have acquired all of the existing leases and assets, though, from Winborn, so that they are all now in Expedition. But we continue to use her services. Find it valuable.
Thank you.
Is that to me?
Yes, you got something to
Well, I've had the one they're discussing out there that's southwest of my house. And it's over 5 years old, and when I kind of seen that for the deal, over 5 years old, now they do that. I hate it. I don't necessarily hate these people or anything. This whole project, when it started, and it was in, this is from the Marion County Record, so you don't know about it, but approves a wind farm. It was Attorney Pat Hughes spoke on behalf of the Robert Sellers family, who owns land near the project. He said there were 2 reasons they were opposed approval to the project: the placement of the project and the process of the application. Now, the placement of the project is in the Flint Hills. And if you guys don't believe it, go out to 130th and up and look around. And we've been trying to not industrialize the Flint Hills. I've been fighting this for 8 years, and they've got contracts 8, 10 years old. And so I want to protect that. We don't want to industrialize the Flint Hills. He also said the application didn't disclose necessary details. It was more of a concept than a plan, he said. It was a concept more than a plan. The applicant has come too early in the project, he said. He's also said there was corruption of the application process, with the company pledging funds to government entities unrelated to the project. And so then I've got this is what I have problems with, is they're switching over to just handing over these leases, these old leases and these conditional use permits. All this was horrible to start with, just like you're saying, the decommissioning agreement, payment in lieu of taxes, the amendment for the permit and use of right-of-ways, all that stuff stinks. I mean, for now, because it's been so long, it wouldn't, should have been even happened in the first place. And then the person that signed it, this Sunwind Energy Group guy, Joseph H. Kraft, I showed him the, this guy's a, I just hate to say it, but he's a crook. I've got stuff here to show you. And he wasn't even supposed to be, some of my information there. It might be wrong, this might be fake news, but they banned him from being an officer or director of a public company. And here we do have the signature on it from June 22nd. And I'm just thinking, I'd rather we look at that before we make any decisions with Expedition, so we can determine if that's really valid what we're doing here. And so that would be my asking you to do, is to have somebody check this out before we just give everything over to Expedition with. Thank you.
Anybody else have any other comments?
My name is Randy Eichson. I suppose the only thing I really got to say is, what they're asking for those towers is so they can make plans for some wind turbines in the future. I think we just need to realize that once the wind towers go up, the land will never be the same again. And Randy, you asked a good question earlier. How close are they going to be to Peabody? Well, 2 miles away. That's not very far away. I think we just need to think. Do we really want the wind towers, or don't we? Maybe it's something we need to check into. With the new company. Just check and see if this is something we really would like to have, or if 5 years from now, 8 years from now, we're going to go, oh my goodness, what did we do after it's ready to too late? One thing maybe not quite so bad in agricultural land. We can probably fix the problem somewhat. You start getting a bunch of these up in the Flint Hills, and I know that you like to drive around, just like I do. I don't know, or will we all look back 7 or 8 years from now and go, ooh, what did we do here? Kind of wonder if we don't maybe need to think about this just a little bit more. And I realize this is just, just for some met towers, but it's just one further step. Thanks.
Sorry, yes, go ahead.
Let me just clarify 2 issues, which, again, takes me a little while to get this thing working. But
Take your time.
First of all, with regards to Flint Hills, first of all, I'm going to tell you I was not familiar with what even Flint Hills was until we started looking at this project about a year and a half ago. When I told you that we acquired the assets of Sunwind and Windborne and not Top Notch, it was for exactly that reason. One of the first things we need to do is make sure that there's buyers for the power. And that Kansas utilities are abiding by the moratorium. And for that reason, the Top Notch property was in some of the area designated by the governor as Flint Hills. The Windborne and Sunwind properties were not. And in discussions with the utilities, they have confirmed that. And so, in fact, they appreciated when we came back to them and said, you know what, we've decided we don't even want to control that property. They appreciated it. We're still talking about the same developers. Secondly, with Sunwind, I know more about this transaction than I ever wanted to, because we had to be obviously very careful. And when you bring a large equity fund, they're so much smarter than we are. Unless we're right, we're not going to prevail. But the most important thing is that of the assets that we purchased, they are all free and clear and valuable. Now and Rex is aware of that, we're actually rewriting some of the leases to make them more financeable and cleaning up some of the things that were done previously. But they're good assets generally. When we closed, nobody at Sunwind, including Mr. Kraft, received a dollar. They did make some very serious mistakes. Telex, who was one of their investors, was in bankruptcy, so we had to deal with their bankruptcy court and provided funding directly to them to reimburse them for some of the abuses that Sunwind had done, as well as Sunwind's direct investors. So I have no opinion about Joe Kraft, except for to say that he was still there at the end after having gone through a tough 2 or 3 years. And I know he did it all pro bono, because we wrote the checks. None of them went to him. Some to his attorney, and that was it. So I think we were careful. I think we're doing the right thing. And I think overall, Marion County is in a lot better position now with the project. And I'll tell you, if it's 4 or 5 years before we build something, we failed. We are working today with the idea of starting construction at some point next year. So.
I have a question. You obtained the original leases,
We did.
but tonight, you're going to be meeting with landowners. Would they be a new leasing?
Some of them would be new leases. Some of the people that we have current leases from, we may lease more property in other areas. And in fact, we are working through what we call an amended and restated lease for every existing landowner. And we're doing that to make sure that they're financeable, they're correct, and fully enforceable. Anybody's property, even if they're an existing leaseholder, that we lease in another part of the county will have to be covered by the new CUP. We understand all that. And we would be back with you, and I think in the interim have discussions on what you want to see in the CUP so that we do something that works for you guys.
Answer Tom. Tom, on your landowners there that you're talking about, that I know most of them, I don't know if any of them completely resigned from their contracts or not, but I do know a few of them was telling me they was re-signing and receiving money from their contracts. So that's one reason why that's why they were still interested. And then, Randy, you own a lot of ground that I like to drive around and look at, as you said.
Yeah,
And
I appreciate that.
My question to you is if that man there presents you a contract for your ground with X amount of dollars in it, and yet you're telling me to step back here and look back or look forward, are you a signer to that contract, or
No.
not? Okay,
No, no.
I just wondered, I'm just asking.
Well, and for several reasons I won't. For one, and I don't, I don't even know how much money, would be involved in it, but it doesn't move. But to me, it just doesn't matter. One reason is, I, well, I know I don't want to look at a bunch of towers for, from now till who knows when, a bunch of blinking lights and stuff. But it's not only me. I don't know if you'd like to, or you would like to, or you kind of got it, but once you pour a big concrete slab and make roads and stuff, let's just say 4 or 5 years from now, this wind energy thing doesn't work out. That's really going to hurt that land a lot. And I think in the future anyway, I think food's going to become more of a critical issue than what probably energy is anyway. So I'm like, let's try to, I guess in a way I'm for economic development. I want to do it through agriculture.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to say too, as far as that moratorium and stuff, and what you guys, well, it wasn't you guys, but anyway, passed for that conditional use permit on the south end, and how they switched to all that top notch, all this happened. I live in the Flint Hills. Go out and look, and I always ask them, just go out and look, 130th and Upland, and look. And I know that's technically not in the Flint Hills, but it's beautiful out there. Well, they say it's not because of the moratorium, which all the utilities got together, and West Star and all them, but we're not going to touch it. That's part of the basic reason is why West Star wouldn't buy it. I mean, because they don't want to industrialize the Flint Hills. But I do live in the Flint Hills. It's not a, just come out and look, and that's all I ask. As far as in the leases, I know a couple of people that's got leases that want to get out of them, and I don't know if they have or not, but they do want to get out of it. They thought they was kind of cornswoggled into getting it the first time. They're all going to be here anyway. You might as well sign up and stuff like that. You only got 7 days, stuff like that, and it upsets people. And like he says, this is going to be forever. It won't ever be the same. And that tall grass prairie, there ain't a whole lot left of it, and it just makes me sick.
Okay, thank you.
One last question. I'm just wondering, you've brought this for the permits on the Met Tower. I'm just wondering, they haven't met with all of the landowners yet, or at least in a public, maybe you have, but in a public setting. Should we wait on doing that until that has been taken care of to see what the sentiment is, or?
I would have no problem with that.
I mean, in the end, this is a landowner issue.
Well, we did have a public hearing, and as with any conditional use permit application, we do notify within 1,000 feet of that property. So while it's not necessarily the extent what you would have with a WEX, with a WEX application, you do have notification in that immediate area and publication in our newspapers. So we did hold the public hearing. We did have a little bit of attendance, but not what you might have for the full application. But again, like I said, it's completely up to you, but we did have a public hearing at the time.
There's a meeting tonight, you said, and that's it where?
That's at the Methodist Church at Olney.
And is that what time? Do you know? Oh, that's okay.
I
That's
think
okay.
either
That's
6 or
good.
7.
Okay. Okay. You're gonna be there.
Yeah,
6
can I
o'clock?
comment?
Yeah,
Just
go
in-
right ahead.
In one
All- I can-
area, appreciate your sentiments in terms of discussions. Discussions have been ongoing with landowners out there for 3 or 4 months. We've signed 5,000 acres of new leases already. It appears to be that there's interest in going forward. There are another 5,000 megawatts of leases in the hands of people out in that area. And to come back to my original comment, we'd like to start construction next spring. Getting the Met Towers up, timing is critical. I consider that we're already a month late, but Emma said, here's the process, and we understood we had to follow the process. I think we did. And to delay any more, even another week, as I said, that data, the timing on that data is important. So,
In regards to Kent's question there, if I lived out there but only owned 60 acres or 80 acres that was not in the main scheme, nothing around me within a mile or so, would I have been notified if I owned 60 acres out there?
In this instance, if you were not within that radius, no. You only receive notification if you're in that radius.
But if you're in the footprint of the, of the proposed area, I mean, even if you're a landowner that would not have a turbine on it, they'd still receive compensation, correct?
they would. We typically sign,
Participation.
participation. Yeah, I agree that it does change the character of the immediate area. And I think the way to be fair to everybody inside the footprint is they share in the compensation. And we make every effort to get that done.
And that's interesting, because I just dealt with the person up north on that project, who did receive a letter months and months ago about being, they called it a good neighbor thing. But the caveat to that was, he wouldn't have allowed a tower on his property anyway. So therefore, he is not now considered a good neighbor. So he does not get any money. Yeah, and the reason I know that is because they were trying to call some of these people and they wouldn't answer the phone, and anyway, I got the answers for them, but, so, is that kind of the same way that
Well,
yours works, or
and
is it?
I don't understand their agreement, right, and I don't understand what happened. But I would have a difficult time imagining how we'd be working with a landowner that, wants to work with us, that we wouldn't find a way to compensate them, even if they didn't have a turbine on their property.
Well, and you just said the answer, right there. You just said a person who wants to work with you, but maybe their property isn't suitable, then yes, they are compensated. But then the next door neighbor who would not have wanted it anyway, but he's gonna have one right outside his front door, he doesn't get any compensation. That's the difference here. And that's what I was talking about.
We would offer that compensation to that person.
I see.
Seems like his whole
Yeah,
process,
so, but anyway.
this whole process is, it just polarizes the whole community. I mean, I've got people that hate me, it's been that long, and I got people that love me, but thank me for what I'm doing here. But the bad part of all this is it polarizes the community to neighbor against neighbor, brother against brother, and it's happened down where I'm at, and that's horrible, but that's what happens in these situations.
And I guess, okay, just for myself, I think I've heard pretty much, but just for myself, and I know your time is important to you and stuff like that. I would like to go to that meeting tonight and just see how many people are there. And that was important for up north. It was amazing how many people actually came out because, and to me, making a decision, that's important to me. No, to really, I hear they don't like them, these don't like them, they love them.
Yep.
But I'd like to see.
We'd welcome you.
So I think I will attend that, but having said that, and I hope.
We also have pie
I also have what?
tonight. We have pie tonight. I understand it's
Well,
very
for
good
sure
pie.
I'll be there.
I guess that was part of my question, because a lot of times we don't hear the public outcry, so much in this chamber. Maybe we have some to a small scale, but, you know, that was why I brought it up. What if you have a meeting tonight and there's just a huge outcry of people that are opposed? Now, I know you want to continue to move forward, but.
But aren't we just talking about med
Yeah.
towers?
Yeah, we are.
Well, I don't think we are just talking about
Well,
Met
that's-
Towers.
that's
I don't
step
think we are.
one.
So Met Towers are what we're considering here. And I feel like this meeting tonight and kind of what we're having, what this discussion is mostly regarding would be what we would consider a wind project, a WEX project, which would be a completely separate application.
Right.
So the Met Towers, now I will say, you know, if we proceed, so if you were to approve these and then say the meeting, there is a lot of opposition, we would have the opportunity to, you know, then deny a conditional use permit for a WEX project, if that were the case. And the towers would then, if they were already constructed, they would have that 5-year limit built into this resolution. So I don't know, I mean, that's just another thing to consider.
So I would ask you, Mr. Calstring, would it really upset you terribly if we just postpone 1 week or something? Let us go to the meeting and just see, and, I mean, that really comforted me up north when I seen how many, because it wasn't up to me, it was like the people had spoken, and that was it.
Let me emphasize her comment. We're doing this entirely at our risk, right? If you don't approve the CUPs at some point in the future, those Met Towers are worthless. The parties that we're paying the lease of the Met Towers, and, you know, they're $35,000, $40,000. You know, that all goes to waste. I will say that timing in this whole issue is important. And the timing of finishing a wind report and having enough towers to correspond to each is a critical financing issue. People are writing $260 million checks.
Okay, well,
We still have the powers after, I mean, like you said, you hear something tonight, and we hear a definite uprising tonight that things aren't flowing down there as maybe as they fluidly flowed in other areas, why, and we still have the powers to do something. I mean, we're not stripping ourselves of any power.
We're just approving the Met Towers.
Yeah.
okay, no, I just, I didn't know we were putting anything off, I guess not. Okay. So, I guess, we'll extend for a motion.
I would make that
There
motion.
are 2 resolutions, one for each of the Met Towers.
You got any
Do you
specific?
care does it matter which order? Okay.
I'd make a motion to,
18-24 is this.
is that a resolution? Is that what we're doing?
Yes.
Make a motion for resolution number 1824, approving a conditional use permit for a temporary Met Tower in the A Agricultural District by Expedition Wind LLC on behalf of Joel E. Suderman, behalf of Joel E. Suderman Trust.
Second.
Have a second by Kent. Oh. Thank you, Diane.
That's quite all right. Okay, so then we do have a motion to accept resolution 1824 by Randy and a second by Kent. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain. Can I abstain because I'm really conflicted on this, so I don't care that. Can I do that? I can't. I can't. I hate to make a decision without really feeling good about it. Okay. All right. Aye. Hopefully then, I'm going to hold everybody to that we still have the opportunity to relook at this.
So did you vote?
Yes, done deal.
It was a real strong aye, Tom.
I didn't hear it.
Oh, you didn't hear it? Well,
Hope we go the other way
This is the next
tonight.
one.
What's that?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 1825, with a temporary Met Tower, on behalf of the Waite Family Living Trust.
Motion by Kent for resolution 1825. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Randy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'll see you tonight, though.
Thank you.
So I hope you have a
We
big
welcome you.
crowd.
Well, we
lots
welcome you
of
to
pie.
join us. I think you'll find we're pretty open and transparent. You'll get a better estimate of what we're doing and where we're going, so all better.
You gonna be there?
Yeah, he'll be there.
I don't know where all.
You don't be
I'm trying to find Almy.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. It'll be interesting to see.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
might I suggest that Tina put out a special notice, just in case either of the gentlemen would care to come this evening too?
That's fine with me. I
I'd
don't know.
like to, but I have conflict.
I'm gonna meet it in Newton.
Okay, so I guess I'm the
Just
lone
tossing
ranger.
that out,
Yeah.
free pie.
Yeah, well.
That's more for me.
How about you go get my pizza?
Now, I look like I need it, don't I?
Okay, so nobody else is going, right?
Doesn't sound like it.
Okay. If that changes, let me know. That'd be great.
Just trying to keep them out of trouble.
Thank you. Okay,
All right, are we ready for my next
yeah,
item?
we're ready for the next item.
Okay. So we did, this is actually, I have another planning commission item as well. This is a vacation request. This is a little bit unique of a situation. It was actually taken to the planning commission a couple of years ago initially. So the initial publication was made in August 6th of 2014. It was the request of the Mollikers and Sardu families out at the county lake, specifically in the Grandview Village Edition. There is an unnamed street that intersects their properties currently. What they had requested at that time was that the portion of the street be vacated so that their lots can be combined. Tina, do you have an aerial of this one as well? That might make it easier.
I don't know if I have the aerial or if it's just a photo,
survey.
like the survey.
Okay,
Oh,
here it
there
is. Okay, so here, this is the property itself. So, the properties in yellow are owned by the Mollikers, and the property in blue is owned by Mr. Sardu. So what they had requested was that the portion of the street just east of an existing water easement be vacated. So we required, the planning commission, they recommended approval in 2014. When Mr. Molliker brought it to me, about a year ago, he said, we did at that time suggest it go back to the planning commission for further review. So again, September 28th of 2017, the planning commission recommended approval pending a survey. So now, at this time, the survey has finally been completed, and what they've done is taken it, and if you scroll back up, what they've done is they did not vacate the west portion of the street, only the east portion that's shown in the colored portion has been vacated. So, or is proposed to be vacated, I should say. So, as you can see, it's been divided. Now, if you look to the east, there is somewhat of a correction, and what that is the surveyor, they do have to make it proportionate to the road frontage, and so when they divide that evenly, he did include a correction there to make it more of a clean break, I guess I should say. So it's all been surveyed. They made sure to respect that water line as requested by the improvement district, and they were the ones who marked the water line prior to the survey being done. So really, we have all of the information that was requested by the planning commission to proceed with this if you guys see fit.
Would you scroll down, Tina, back to the house, or to the picture there that you was at? That 76 Blue Stem Lane, has that been new owners since all this has been taken care of?
No, they were actually, we had visited with the current owner there, on another issue as well. I've actually worked with them on a couple of issues, and they are aware of the situation and they are okay with it. However, they do not receive any property in this vacation because what has been vacated is all east of their property line.
Okay, my question being then is where that yellow line from the, not Sardu's blue, but the top section there, where that comes, that's supposed to come on down. If the Mullickers put a fence across that and the Sardu's put a fence across that to somewhat make their property square, how does that affect that 76 Blueskin Lane road then? I mean, it's right in front of their house.
Well, so they're actually, the way that property is situated, they have almost, and you can see it there somewhat,
Yep.
they have a circle drive.
Yep.
So I would say their property, their front door faces south, truly.
Okay.
But they access it from, I would say, from the west.
Yeah, and I'm in
That makes
agreement.
sense.
I'm trying to make sure that we don't do something to that house. That
Yeah.
we, that's all my concern is I guess if they're happy with it, if I had I would be happy if they wrote us a letter that they was aware of it and stuff like that, because I don't think they was there when this all started.
They attended our planning commission
They did?
meeting. They
This
did,
last-
this
like
last
recently?
fall, yes.
Last fall,
Yes,
okay.
they attended the planning commission meeting and did not have any concerns at that time. So what Mr. Molliker is requesting is that all be, he would like it to all be combined, so that he can utilize it as a backyard. He said he's been mowing it and been maintaining it for a number of years, and I think he'd just like to make it official.
This wasn't the same situation we were talking about way back when the fire chief had an issue with this. This is totally separate.
So
Totally separate,
both
yes.
of them are
Yes.
accessed, and I guess that I cropped it too close, but both, so the Sardu's property is accessed from the east, and then Blue Stem is actually to the west. So this is not this proposed vacation is not used as a street. It's not, I don't think it's ever been used as in
No,
that way.
I don't think so. It's just been an access for people to go through there.
Yeah.
I mean, not the general public, because Sardu's more or less have theirs sort of, in the blue there, they have that sort of closed off
Mhm.
where you can't go through.
They do.
Okay, as long as those, I'm just happy as long as those people are happy.
Yeah, they did not express any concerns, and very nice people.
So, let's see, that is,
I don't know if, I think, was there some modifications? Did you have a updated?
The only modification I had on them, we had talked about this, there was the reservation of the existing easement. I changed that just based on past experience and having it haunt me in the past. To say, subject to express reservation of the perpetual easement, the utility placement and maintenance, including ingress and egress, for installation and maintenance thereof. That way, what's there already, we're reserving. If anything needed to change, there's not a lapse. We have the ingress egress specified to make it perpetual in nature, and that's filed of record with the registrar. It needs a whole lot more than just saying, what's there right now, we're holding on to, and that's all. It's actually, somebody else came in with something else and wanted to use that easement for another public utility of some sort. It provides for that.
If you have that wording, we can add that in.
Yeah, that's what I was
Before
thinking.
Before they adopt it.
I can just read that into the minutes or however provided to you. I've got it written out as well. But I had a PDF of it, so I didn't
Okay.
insert it.
I can do that if you have it.
Yep,
Okay, if you have it written, I'll just
I do.
type it in, I can just add it in on the.
You have, yeah.
I think so,
I
didn't you
think
send
the
me a
Word
Word
version.
document?
I think I did.
Okay. And that would be on the vacation order and the resolution?
Yes, I did it on both.
Okay.
Just made it reasonably consistent.
Okay.
You can read my handwriting.
I will try.
If not, just yell.
Okay. I don't know if there's anything else, if there's something that you need to do in executive or something while I work on this, or if there's,
It's not absolutely essential, but if we have the time, we can certainly do that.
or if you guys just want to wait, but it'll take a couple minutes.
Can we send another girl in, go ahead and take care of the last one on the park utility update?
Was that a question to me?
Yeah, I just wanted to,
Yeah, we can do that, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Did you have other things besides this?
She has another one, don't you?
I have a couple of things actually that, so it doesn't.
Oh, I guess we should just continue then, huh?
Okay.
That's me.
Okay, so I did want to also, I guess, one of them, I did also want to give you a little bit of an update. So we did, at the Planning Commission meeting most recently, we also, the same board serves as the Board of Zoning Appeals. So we did convene as the Board of Zoning Appeals that same evening on August the 2nd. Two cases were heard. The first was a special exception for an accessory structure larger than 900 square feet. So at specifically the East Shore and the County Lake, both of those locations are zoned so that we do require a special exception for an accessory structure. So any structure that's in addition to an existing residence on the same parcel is considered accessory. So we did have that case that was approved, and then we also had the request for a variance at the County Lake that was denied. Both the Board of Zoning Appeals, their rulings are final, but I did want to provide you with an update on both of those cases. So that was also part of our general business this month. We are also having our regular meeting later this week, which is on the 23rd, this Thursday evening. The only item on the agenda at this time is just lot split, our lot split regulations, and we are looking at amending that, our ag lot split, to allow the creation of additional parcels. So that will come to you again in the future, but just to give you a little bit of an update as to what our Planning Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals has been up to. I did also, and this is in relationship to the expedition project, transfer of the Doyle project. So currently, when we receive an application, I do request that shape files are included in that application if possible. Because this was previously permitted, and it was permitted in segments at a time when it was not as common to request that type of mapping or those types of files, we do not have shape files currently for the existing Doyle project. So as you're aware, there were 5 different CUPs for that permitted project area. And so what I did, I actually got in touch with RNS Digital, who is currently our mapping service provider. And what they did, I gave them the legal descriptions for each project area. They would be able to add that, but we're looking at about $700 to $800 to add those shape files for the existing permits. So I would like to request the approval to move forward with that if at all possible. That would give us the ability in our zoning maps to actually view the areas that were already permitted, already have a conditional use permit existing. It would greatly assist with with moving forward with the expedition group as to where they're permitted and where they are not. So that was my other request. I would also, that total does include the Doyle project. I think it's Doyle 4, which is south of Highway 50, which was retained by Top Notch. So I would include all of them in that request.
She needs action on that, or just do it?
Because it's over my authorized limit.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm thinking, what, isn't your limit $1,000?
Shouldn't we make sure it's all legal first?
What's that?
I said, shouldn't we make sure that all this is legal?
Well, then I'm gonna,
Well, we're just requesting,
okay,
Yeah.
well then
I think that's,
okay.
we can
Well,
ask.
then
It's a possibility.
Okay. I'll just move forward with those. That's okay with you.
But it's good that you've been thinking of the 500.
Well, yeah. So I will move forward with that, and that's, okay. Okay, and then I did want to request executive session for about 10 minutes to discuss personnel and performance.
Can we do that all at one time? Not?
No, if I do mine today, it's a separate subject, so it would be a separate session. But you can certainly do yours.
Before we go into that, can you go ahead and pursue that, that CCAT situation has been, and we had talked about it several times, and now with Mr. Jantz, he doesn't have unless they do have conflicts like Susan did.
Yeah, we can.
Maybe we could get something like that resolved. They've been waiting forever.
So that issue, and then there's also the issue with Dan Drive. Both of those are at the county meetings, and they are
Yes.
both issues that I would like to discuss.
We need to
further
get
with
those
Mr. Jans.
moving.
So we
Those
can-
people have been waiting forever.
You can see there's another option there too.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Where are we at on our schedule here?
Get Darren off there, that's our last one.
Well, Darren, you wanna come on up, or you look like you're entertaining yourself over there?
I can do whatever you need to do to fit the schedule.
Yeah, well, go ahead, come on up. Are you're done?
And then we'll, except for those.
Executive session.
Except executive,
Yeah.
yeah, let's
Wait
take
till
care of
then.
Darren, if that's okay?
Yep, that's
That way,
That
Darren's
makes sense.
happy over here. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's go.
getting going.
Getting back to work.
trading spot.
Yep. Okay, so we finally got everything back from KDHE and the contractor on, I'll get you some here in a second. On the RV park out at the lake. So what I'm handing out is we officially accepted that bid back in May, if you remember right. And so what this is actually a change order, is the appropriate way to go about this. So what you see on the back there, the front's just the legal part of it. There you go. On the back there, you'll see the top is the original bid table as we received it. So the original bid that you accepted was $86,059.50. After the changing out, basically we're not going to have the hydrants anymore, because they're no longer legal to have in an RV park by KDHE all over the state. So anybody that is currently getting permits for anything will no longer be able to have those, because they don't meet the current standards at all. So what we did is we changed the design up a little bit. We worked with both Isaac and the Improvement District to make sure we were going to meet everybody's needs. And so what we're going to have is the RV areas, all the RV spaces will be under a system where once he shuts them down, Josh is going to come over and blow the system out, and it'll be winterized. So each year. And then when he turns it back on, they'll be good for them for the season. And it'll be on its own separate system. So the lake hall, the office, and the house will actually be on a system that'll stay energized full year round, be winter, and you won't have to winterize, it'll all be all done. So we're kind of severing those two pieces of the system that are currently all hooked up right now. And then those trailer houses that run along that row, we're still going to go ahead and move the main to the inside so we get away from the rest of the utilities. And each one will have it'll look like a meter pit inside of a city, but it'll actually be no meter in it. It's just going to be their connections for their trailer houses will be down in that meter pit. So instead of having a yard hydrant sticking up above ground, now the shut-off valve will be down inside. They're still going to have both have their own shut-off valves. There'll actually be a little backflow preventer on them too, and then that's the way the system will be set up. So once again, trailer houses with the line to the meter pit area will be energized year-round. It's just when they go to winterize each individual trailer house, they'll have to open that lid, unhook it. Where now they just have to unhook off the yard hydrant.
So we have a supervisor out there that could be part of his job.
Well, and I asked you about that. He said, is that a big deal pulling those lids? We'll make sure that the lids are going to be, not tough to get into or anything. So, but that, he will have to now actually go pull the lid to look in there to make sure they're disconnected.
Cool.
So anyway, by doing these changes that I just have talked about, the new project price would be $74,060, so it saves about $12,000, $11,999 to be exact. So, and they can get started if we get this approved, so they can order materials. They're looking at starting middle of September to end of September, and be done in less than 30 days. So, there's a plan. And this is ditch diggers out of Salina. So.
Okay. That sounds great.
Okay, I don't they need to take action to approve the change order?
Yeah, yes, we'll need to.
So I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept the change order from $86,059.50 to $74,060.50 for the 2018 Marion County Lake RV waterline improvements. Do I have a second? Second by Randy. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right.
While you're here, can I just ask you one quick question? Have you had a chance to look at the 330th road
Yes.
yet?
Mhm.
And-
Yes.
And you know?
Talked to
the
Jesse
answer?
about that. Also
Randy
talked-
doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, dude.
Okay. All right, sorry.
You'll sign.
Yep. Yeah.
Sorry.
Were you talking in general or about the specific project?
Go right ahead,
You're
Randy.
awake there, Randy.
Yeah.
No, okay, so I've talked to Terracon, I've talked to the contractor. The only one I haven't talked to right now is the asphalt subcontractor. What the next best course of action is, I'm gonna go up there sometime this week, kind of weather depending, and I'm gonna take some cores. And I'm gonna core through just the crack, just the asphalt. Because what we're looking at doing is, we need to find out, number one, before we even think about taking the next step, is our base problem. In looking at what's going on up there, so far, as of last week, there's only 3 locations, and 2 of the locations are about 20 to 30 feet long on the edge ones, and then the one that runs down kind of the center of the lane is closer to 200 feet long. The thing that totally has surprised me so far, when you drive any new asphalt surface, you get out to this, and we're at 9-10 months now since that was put down. We don't have a single transverse crack or crack that goes across the road in that whole entire 8 miles, which is a total shock. The way asphalt shrinks and swells with temperatures, usually you'll get one of those cracks. Well, you take a look at some of our older pavements that are even a couple years old. Sometimes every 100 feet you can get them. And we don't have any in that entire 8-mile stretch. So now that, that asphalt is separating this way is a little bit of a mystery to everybody. So before we can answer the next question, we're going to core it to see if that crack goes into the base. If the crack is only in the asphalt surface, there'll be probably one recommendation. If the crack goes on down to the base, obviously we're having a base failure or a base issue, and that's a totally different issue. So the contractor has been notified. We're within our 12-month period. Therefore, we're on the good side of any kind of fixes that might happen. So.
Just wanted an
Yep,
update.
yeah.
Thank you.
My plan was after we get it poured, I'll let Jesse know whatever day I'm going out there. And Terracon even said they might try to swing up through the end of the main guy that did the base design piece with the cement. Said he might try to swing up too with the day I'm doing it. So.
Good. Thank you.
So,
Appreciate that.
as soon as I find that results out, we'll come back, schedule another time with you and let you know.
All right, yeah, great.
Thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome. Now, I guess we're gonna probably go into executive sessions.
I just have one question.
Oh,
Isaac
sorry.
Wells here.
Oh, yeah, please, go ahead.
Did you have a chance to go look at the merchandise that was offered to us?
I did.
And will you come back to us with?
Yes.
Okay.
That is something that Lynn also asked me to talk to you guys about, if you would be interested in going over and looking at it yourselves, just to see anything that he is more than open to have you guys over and show you.
I've seen it.
You've seen it? Okay. Okay, yep, we can do that.
Is that all?
That's it.
So, yes, were you gonna say something? So I think, well, we're gonna go into executive session, so I'll probably go ahead. Does anybody in the public have anything they wanna say or anything? Okay,
Not today, not this time.
okay,
I've had this time already, let it go.
okay. Yeah, we're gonna,
Do you
change your
take any
mind?
action on any of these?
I don't know, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know what they're
Before
about.
when Brad's back, before that you do the executive session, you'll have a vacation order to do and this other resolution to do this vacation.
Okay.
If that's the way you're gonna go.
Sounds good. So here, one more thing to do before we go into executive session.
He's looked at this. I don't know if you just want to go ahead and take action on the vacation order.
Might as well, I mean,
He looked at the changes that I put on and he was comfortable with them, so.
Okay. Okay, so this is in the matter of the vacation of a portion of certain unnamed 3 adjoining the south line of lot 31 through 35 and adjoining the north line of 36 through 40 of Grandview Village Edition plat, Marion County, Kansas. Case number PC 1404. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Second by Randy. All in favor say aye. 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 Say aye.
Aye, aye, aye.
Aye, aye, aye.
Okay, and then in conjunction with that, there's a resolution.
So this will be resolution 2018-26, a resolution on the petition and request to vacate a portion of a certain unnamed street adjoining the south line of lots 31 through 35 and adjoining the north line of lots 36 through 40 of Grandview Village Edition plat in Marion County, Kansas. Second by Kent. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
So then, if there's nothing else, then we'll make a motion to go into executive session. You said you want to discuss personnel performance?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to move that we recess into executive session in order to discuss personnel matters of non-elected officials, specifically for performance pursuant KSA 754319B with the commission, Mr. Jantz, Emma,
Tina can say it.
Tina. For how long?
10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay, for 10 minutes time. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Randy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I won't hang out.